Chapter 540. Comfortable. How can the grudges of the pugilistic world be more comfortable than sleeping with my wife at home? I won't leave home for so many days in the future. The next morning, Li Zishuan stretched lazily on the bed and moaned in an extremely satisfied manner. Han Yushi, who was dressing up in front of the immortal mirror, rolled her eyes at Li Zishuan and said, "Husband, it's already morning. Shouldn't you be up to practice Taiji fist with us?" Nowadays, the immortal mirror was popular in Chang'an. It was difficult for many rich families to get a mirror, but the Li family didn't lack it. Not only did Han Yushi have a big mirror, but even Lan and Madame Li's rooms each had a big mirror. In this aspect, the Li family was richer than the palace because only Empress Zhongsun had a big mirror in the huge palace. Yes. I almost forgot about the important matter. Wife, did you slack off every morning when I wasn't around? Li Zishuan patted his head and quickly jumped off the bed. He hugged Han Yushi's slender waist from behind and gently blew into her ear. Husband, itchy. Stop fooling around. Han Yushi laughed coquettishly and quickly turned her head. She said angrily, "Who's lazy? In the whole family, other than you, who knows how to be lazy? Who can be lazier than you?" Wow. My wife actually said that I'm lazy. Looks like my work last night wasn't good enough. Let's not go out for now. Let's do it again. Li Zishuan pretended to be angry and was about to attack her. Snake. Okay, Snake. Help. At this moment, Xiao He's terrified scream came from outside the door. Li Zishuan shook his head. It looked like his good thing was going to be ruined. Taiji Palace. The morning court was in session. Ever since the court issued the decree to reduce taxes on raising chickens, every household in the Guangzhou region has raised an average of more than 70 chickens. Because many farmers have kept their eggs for hatching chickens, the price of eggs in all the provinces and counties has more than doubled. The price of eggs in Chang'an has risen the most. Merchants have heard the news and have moved large amounts of chickens and eggs from the Jiangnan region. However, it is still a drop in the bucket. This old official earnestly requests Your Majesty to conscript ships to transport chickens and eggs from Jiangnan to stabilize the price of chickens and eggs. Fang Xuanling's loud voice echoed in the hall. I second the motion. As soon as Fang Xianling finished speaking, Wei Jing jumped out and was the first to agree. His speed was so fast that everyone was dumbfounded. Cough, cough. The main reason was that eggs were too expensive in Chang'an recently. Wei Jing's source of income was also very small. Now, he could not eat eggs every day. Wei Yan was very depressed. Li Er looked at Wei Jing strangely, then nodded and said, "Approved. Minister Xiao, you will be in charge of this matter." Xiao Yu stepped forward with a straight face and said, "This old subject obeys the decree. Reporting to Your Majesty, the 7 cultivators sect was destroyed overnight. General Niu has led the army back in triumph." At this time, a soldier in bright armor entered the hall and reported loudly. Immediately, there was a buzz of discussion in the hall. General Niu is really amazing. He came back so quickly. Yet, General Niu and the others are still the best at war. He's much faster than Li Zhanshi. Previously, when Li Zishuan was defeated at Snake Spirit Mountain and returned to the court, Niu Jinda led 6,000 soldiers to attack Snake Spirit Mountain twice. Although many of them did not receive the news at first, they later heard some rumors from various places. Now, in just 3 days, Niu Jinda had returned in triumph. This made them praise Niu Jinda's godlike ability to command troops. At the same time, they criticized Li Zishuan's lack of experience in battle, which caused the court to lose soldiers and generals. Good. Quickly summon General Niu to the palace. Li Er's eyes flashed as he ordered in a deep voice. Yes. This old subject greets Your Majesty. About half an hour later, Niu Jinda came to Taiji Palace in full armor and greeted Li Er with cupped fist. Dispense with the formalities. Li Er stretched out his hand and said with a pleasant expression, Jinda, you've worked hard. Snake Spirit Mountain is full of poisonous miasma, and the terrain is steep. It's easy to defend and hard to attack. Jinda, quickly tell me and the ministers how the remnants of the 7 cultivators sect were destroyed overnight. Niu Jinda straightened his body and said with a smile, Your Majesty, this old subject didn't work hard. In fact, this old subject didn't contribute much to the destruction of the 7 cultivators sect. As soon as his voice fell, all the ministers were shocked. Only Li Er sat on the throne with a happy expression, as if everything was under his control. Why do you say that, Minister Niu? Although he had already guessed the result, Li Er still helped to ask the question in everyone's heart. As Your Majesty said earlier, the terrain of Snake Spirit Mountain is steep, and it's easy to defend and hard to attack. If we forcibly attack the mountain, although we can take down the 7 cultivators sect, we will inevitably suffer heavy losses. Therefore, this old subject led the army to surround Snake Spirit Mountain 3 days ago and didn't attack, waiting for Li Zishuan to come and fulfill his promise. At this point, many of the ministers were puzzled. Promise? What promise? Could it be related to the 7 cultivators sect? Fang Xianling, Zhang Sun Wuji, Qin Qiong, Cheng Yaojin, and the others just smiled and didn't say anything. They were all present that day, but they couldn't help but feel shocked. After listening to Niu Jinda's words, it seemed that Li Zishuan really did what he said. He single-handedly destroyed a sect that had a peak grandmaster and a 7 cultivators of true virtue serpent, whose strength was comparable to a great grandmaster. This kind of thing sounded crazy. Niu Jinda ignored everyone's doubts and continued, Last night, this old subject was asleep, but I was awakened by a loud noise. This old subject went out of the tent to investigate and found that Snake Spirit Mountain had been struck by lightning and was accompanied by endless flames. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, the mountain peak turned into a sea of fire, and I could faintly hear miserable screams coming from there. Today, at dawn, this old subject went up the mountain with the soldiers and found that all the houses of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect had collapsed. There were corpses everywhere on the ground, and some of them didn't even have a complete corpse. Broken limbs were everywhere. After Lu Baodan, a disciple of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect who was captured earlier, identified them, the sect master of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, Yin Batian, Elder Fei Shi, and the other 30 or so bastards were all killed. However, this old subject didn't find any trace of the giant beast of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, the 7 cultivators of true virtue serpent. Hiss. After Niu Jinda finished speaking, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. No wonder this old man vaguely heard the sound of thunder last night. At that time, I thought I was dreaming. What exactly happened on Snake Spirit Mountain last night? How could it be so tragic? Who did this? How could they be so ruthless? General Niu just said that he would wait for Li Zhanshe to fulfill his promise. Could it be that Li Zhanshe did all this? Chapter 541. Everyone's guess is correct. 3 days ago, Li Zishuan made a military order in front of His Majesty. He said that he would wipe out the 7 cultivators of true virtue within 3 days and take revenge for the soldiers who died earlier. Last night, he did it. The 7 cultivators sect has been wiped out, and the main culprit and the remaining evildoers have all been executed. This old subject congratulates His Majesty for having such an outstanding talent in Great Tang. In the Taiji Palace, when Niu Jinda heard the discussion of the ministers in the hall, he smiled and said loudly to Li Er, General Niu, your words are biased. While everyone was still in a daze, a fat middle-aged official wearing a scarlet robe stepped out of the crowd and cupped his hands. General Niu only heard the thunder last night, but it doesn't mean that Li Jianshi did it alone. Moreover, as far as I know, the Snake Spirit Mountain is hundreds of feet high. How could Li Jianshi climb to the top of the mountain and release the thunder at night alone? How is such a method different from that of an immortal? And Li Jianshi is just like us with a mortal body. This kind of battle record is definitely not done by Li Jianshi. Maybe the 7 Cultivators sect did all kinds of evil and the heavens couldn't stand it anymore, so they sent down the thunder as punishment. Niu Jinda narrowed his eyes and recognized the official in front of him as Chamberlain Chui Shanfu. He smiled meaningfully and said, "Oh? Has Chamberlain Chui been to the Snake Spirit Mountain before? Otherwise, how could you be so familiar with the situation there? To tell you the truth, if it weren't for Guda's letter, this old man wouldn't have known that there was such a poisonous mountain in the depths of the Qinling Mountains." The rest of the people originally wanted to agree with Chui Shanfu, but after hearing this, they immediately shut their mouths and cast doubtful looks at Chui Shanfu. Chui Shanfu's eyelids twitched, and he hurriedly said, "General Niu, you don't know, but this Chui has a distant cousin who often travels around to sell goods. He once got lost in the Qinling Mountains and happened to pass by the Snake Spirit Mountain. What this official just said was all from him." Niu Jinda said with a faint smile, "Ha ha! What a coincidence! However, what I said just now was not all speculation. If you don't believe that Snake Spirit Mountain was destroyed by Li Zixuan alone, you can go to the entrance of the Li family in Yongla Lane and take a look after the court. The corpse of 7th Cultivator of True Virtue on the Serpent Spirit Mountain is still there to dry. Although I don't know what kind of method he used to transport the great serpent of 7th Cultivator of True Virtue, which is 30 feet long and weighs several hundred kilograms, from the midst of an army of tens of thousands of soldiers without anyone noticing. But I'm sure you won't have any doubts after seeing the spectacle of heavenly thunders and earthly fires, right?" Hearing this, Chui Shanfu's face suddenly became extremely ugly, but the other ministers couldn't help but exclaim. Qing Yaojin laughed and said, "Good! There will be snake meat to eat. I, old Qing, have eaten all kinds of snake meat. But I have never touched the meat of the great serpent of 7th Cultivator of True Virtue. Now I have to taste it properly." Li Er secretly rolled his eyes. He then turned to Zhao Song, who had long been shocked out of his wits, and ordered, "Go and summon Li Zixuan for an audience." "Ah? Oh. This old servant obeys." Zhao Song came back to his senses and hurriedly responded. Then, he walked out of the hall. As soon as he walked out of the palace, he saw a person running over and saying, "Old Zhao, bad news. Li Jianshi is missing. He's not in the workshop." The person who sent him breakfast just now found that the Drunken Wind Pavilion was empty. Everyone in the workshop is now looking for Li Jianshi. The person who came was the head of the spies that Zhao Song had planted around the workshop. Zhao Song said unhappily, "Idiot! Follow me to Yongla Lane." "Ah?" The head of the spies was dumbfounded. He scratched his head and muttered to himself, Why are we going to Yongla Lane? Don't tell me Li Jianshi can fly home?" However, no one paid attention to his muttering. After Zhao Song finished speaking, he had already walked far away. "Wow! What a big snake! This snake looks so ferocious. It actually has 7 heads. This beast probably eats people. Look at how thick its body is." In front of the Li residence, there was a lively scene. Earlier, Li Zixuan teased the frightened Xiao He. Then, he ordered the servants to carry the corpse of the 7th Cultivator of True Virtue to the front of the Li residence and set up a special shelf. This way of placing the corpse made the 7th Cultivator of True Virtue look even more ferocious, somewhat resembling its might when it was alive. "Dear neighbors, the people of the 7th Cultivator of True Virtue tried to harm me twice in a row, wanting to kill me and my wife. They even tried to assassinate the ministers of the imperial court in broad daylight. The 7th Cultivator of True Virtue is disregarding the law. Therefore, 6 days ago, I received His Majesty's decree to attack the 7th cultivator of true virtue together with the commander of the Northern Yaman's Imperial Army, Dugu Exin. As for the details, you should have heard my wife mention them before. We could have taken them down in one fell swoop. But at the last moment, the elder of the 7th cultivator of true virtue, Flying Snake, released this ferocious beast and charged into the army, killing 215 heroic souls. In order to avoid more casualties, I had no choice but to order a retreat. But good and evil will eventually be repaid, and the heavenly Tao will reincarnate. Last night, I attacked the Serpent Spirit Mountain alone and destroyed the 7th cultivator of true virtue in one fell swoop with the help of the heavenly lightning. The sect master, elders, and disciples of the sect were all killed, and the enmity of 215 heroic souls was finally avenged. This is the consequence of being so vicious and disobeying the imperial court's decree. Li Zishuan stood in front of the door and shouted at the crowd. What the hell, I didn't hear wrong, did I? Li Xianan destroyed an entire sect by himself. That's too scary. Not only did they have many experts in their sect, but they also had a 7-headed snake. How did Li Xianan do it? That's too ruthless. But heroes really come from the young. Li Xianan is so young, but his martial arts are already so good. Master Li gave birth to a good son. He's really good at both civil and martial arts. Looking at the red-lipped, white-toothed, and seemingly harmless young man in front of the gate of the Li residence with a relaxed smile on his face, everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. They thought to themselves, this man is so ruthless. He wiped out an entire sect by himself. We can't afford to offend him. We can't afford to provoke him. Li Zishuan was very satisfied with the result. He glanced at the crowd and pointed at the 7th cultivator of true virtue hanging on the frame, saying, I, Li Zishuan, don't like to cause trouble, but I'm not afraid of trouble either. If someone wants to harm my family again, I won't hesitate to kill them no matter how powerful they are. Even if I have to chase them to the ends of the earth, I'll kill them. The ordinary people shrunk their necks and couldn't help but ridicule him in their hearts. You're going to destroy an entire sect just because you don't like it. Who would dare to provoke you in the future? However, the complexions of several men changed, and they quietly retreated. Li Zishuan smiled and didn't care about them. Li Zhanshe, His Majesty summons you immediately. Chapter 542. In front of the Li residence. When Li Zishuan saw Zhao Song and the others, he was stunned. Zhao Song was Li Er's most trusted eunuch. Why would he personally come to deliver the decree? Butler Zhao, may I know why your Majesty has summoned me? Seeing the arrival of the angels, the crowd in front of the Li residence dispersed. Li Zishuan braced himself and greeted them. Now, among the people he didn't want to see the most, Li Er was definitely at the top. Although the bombing last night was very satisfying, Li Zishuan had a headache when he thought about how he would have to clean up his mess later. After all, he was now in a feudal monarch's dynasty. He had used supernatural powers. If he didn't explain it clearly, it would be easy for Li Er to be suspicious. Zhao Song first glanced at the 7th cultivator of true virtue that was hung up in front of the Li residence. He could feel the remaining bloodthirsty and ferocious aura on the snake's body. Even Zhao Song, who had been in the Grandmaster realm for many years, could not help but be shocked. He secretly wondered how Li Zishuan defeated this giant snake. After a while, he said, Mr. Li, you must be joking. We are just following His Majesty's orders. How can we guess His Majesty's intentions? You'd better come with us to meet His Majesty. Li Zishuan was speechless. This was obvious, yet Zhao Song still tried to hide it. He could only say goodbye to his family and ride Big White to the palace with Zhao Song. On the way, Zhao Song's gaze involuntarily fell on Li Zishuan several times, causing Li Zishuan to feel uncomfortable. Finally, Zhao Song smiled casually and said, Mr. Li, you are very capable. That 7-headed snake alone may not be a match for 1,000 soldiers. Mr. Li, you single-handedly destroyed the 7 cultivator of true virtue sect. You are indeed a young hero. The corner of Li Zixuan's mouth twitched. He cupped his hands and said, Butler Zhao, you flatter me. I'm just borrowing some of my master's shadow to do whatever I want. Please don't laugh at me. Shadow? Zhao Song's curiosity was piqued and he asked, Could it be that what happened last night had something to do with your master? Li Zixuan nodded and said seriously, Of course. Otherwise, how could this kid be so capable? Seeing that Zhao Song wanted to get to the bottom of the matter, Li Zixuan hurriedly waved his hand and said, Butler Zhao, it's best that you don't ask about the details first. We'll be meeting His Majesty soon, and His Majesty will definitely ask about it. You'll know then. He laughed evilly in his heart. Who asked you to be so unkind to me just now? Now I'll whet your appetite. Just as Zhao Song's breath came up, it was blocked. He was really choked. However, he thought that Li Zixuan's words made sense, so he nodded gloomily and did not ask further. Inside the Taiji Palace. After Zhao Song left, the ministers in the imperial court were supposed to continue discussing state affairs. However, after listening to Niu Jinda's description, they were all anxious to know what relationship Li Zixuan had with the destruction of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect. Or rather, how did Li Zixuan destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect single-handedly? At this time, no one was in the mood to discuss state affairs. They were all silently waiting for Li Zixuan, the person involved, to come over. However, there was one exception, and that was Minister Cui Shanfu of the Honglu Temple. Ever since he went for wool and came home shorn, he had been keeping silent. Later, when he heard Niu Jinda swear that Li Zixuan was the one who destroyed the Snake Spirit Mountain, and that there was conclusive evidence, his face turned as black as the bottom of a pot, and he seemed to be very anxious. In the main hall, a few ministers were reporting irrelevant topics, and Li Er also gave some irrelevant responses from the Dragon Throne. Finally, a sharp voice came from outside, Crown Prince Zhan Shi, Li Zixuan requests an audience. Li Er said in a deep voice, Enter. A moment later, Li Zixuan walked in with his head held high. That man is here. The man who destroyed the entire sect is here. Wherever Li Zixuan went, the ministers would avoid him. They did not know if it was an illusion, but many of them felt that the Li Zixuan today was very different from before. This was because there was a trace of blood on his body, and he was more decisive in killing. This kind of aura was only felt by Qing Yaojin and the others many years ago. However, these old generals were now old, and their aura was much more stable, unlike the past. They did not expect that Li Zixuan would also start to have this kind of terrifying aura. This humble subject pays respect to your majesty. As soon as Li Zixuan came in, Li Er's pupils couldn't help but shrink. What a heavy murderous aura! At this time, he saw Li Zixuan come forward and salute him. He nodded slightly and said, You may rise. After Li Zixuan straightened his body, Li Er said in a deep voice, Li Zixuan, the 7 cultivators sect was attacked by heavenly lightning and earthly fire last night, and the entire sect was destroyed. Was it related to you? As soon as his voice fell, all the ministers looked at Li Zixuan. Although Niu Jinda had already said it with certainty, they still wanted to hear what Li Zixuan had to say. Replying to your majesty, it was indeed this humble subject's doing. The 7 cultivators sect has done all kinds of evil, and they tried to assassinate me twice. They have no respect for the law, and they gather in the mountains and forests. How are they different from bandits? A few days ago they killed 215 soldiers of the imperial court. What this humble subject did yesterday was only to fulfill the promise this humble subject made a few days ago, and more importantly, to avenge the soldiers. At this point there was nothing to hide, and there was no need to hide. Many people liked to pick on the weak. Although Li Zixuan had only been in Tang for less than a year, he didn't want to be a pushover. Although this matter might arouse Li Er's suspicion, it could also serve as a deterrent to those who had evil intentions towards him. He wasn't someone who could be easily bullied. It's fine if you want to harm me, but you must be prepared to have your whole family killed. Li Zixuan wasn't a bloodthirsty person, but he was a person who was afraid of trouble. If he was bullied by cats and dogs every day, wouldn't it be very troublesome for him to slap their faces one by one? As soon as Li Zixuan finished speaking, most people's expressions changed, and they secretly thought that this young man was really ruthless. Kong Ingda frowned and stepped forward. Mr. Li, I'm afraid this is inappropriate. The sages often say that we must maintain a benevolent heart. Although the 7 Cultivators sect has committed terrible crimes, you only need to kill the main culprit. Why do you have to exterminate the entire sect and kill them all? This is against the will of the heavens. Although Li Zixuan had left the Imperial College and established his own school, Kong Ingda still regarded Li Zixuan as a junior. His words were directed at the matter, not the person. He was only advising Li Zixuan not to kill too heavily. When he bombed the 7 Cultivators sect, Li Zixuan did indeed hesitate whether he would kill the innocent by doing so. But every time he thought about how Zhao Siwei and the others arranged the Modeo formation at the last moment to cover him and Dugu Xian's retreat, all the hesitation in Li Zixuan's heart was swept away. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame those people for joining the wrong sect. After the incident, he also expected that his action of exterminating the entire sect would attract the dissatisfaction of some Confucian defenders, but he didn't expect that the first one to jump out would be Kong Ingda. Li Zixuan paused for a moment, and then retorted, "The will of the heavens? What is the will of the heavens? Watching your brothers die tragically and not taking revenge, is that the will of the heavens? Allowing the wicked to go unpunished and continue to do evil, is that the will of the heavens? Bullshit. When I, Li Zixuan, do things, I don't let down the heavens, I don't let down the earth, I don't let down the emperor, and I don't let down my brothers. I'm benevolent, I'm only benevolent to my own people. Besides, those 215 soldiers died on Snake Spirit Mountain without leaving behind their corpses. Who in the 7 Cultivators sect would dare to claim to be innocent? Since they chose to fight the imperial court together with Batian, they should be prepared to die. Chapter 543. Within Taiji Palace, Li Zixuan's words caused Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Zhang Sun Wuji and the other civil officials to frown, while the military officials nodded repeatedly. Cheng Yaojin was even more excessive. This old fellow walked over with a hearty laugh and patted Li Zixuan's shoulder with all his might, saying, "Ha ha! Good! Well said! This is a good man of Great Tang. How can benevolence and righteousness protect Great Tang? Only by using the blade and blood can Great Tang not be bullied. Your Majesty, this child is a good seedling." Li Zixuan grinned. This old fellow really did not know how to control his strength. If the ground under his feet was a little looser, Cheng Yaojin's 2 slaps would have planted him into the ground. Kong Ingda was so angry that his beard blew up. He scolded, "Preposterous! All preposterous! Duke of Lu, as an elder, how can you teach your juniors to be bloodthirsty? Li Xianan has killed so many people at such a young age. What good will it do him in the future?" Li Zixuan wanted to retort, but Cheng Yaojin stared at him. "So what if he's young? Xiao Xian killed people who deserved to be killed. What's wrong with that? Back then, Hua Tsubing attacked the Xiongnu in the north when he was 17. Why don't you say that he's young?" With Cheng Yaojin speaking up, Li Zixuan was happy to watch the show from the side. However, after hearing Cheng Yaojin's words, he could not help but feel happy. Cheng Yaojin, this boorish person, also knows how to quote classics? Duke of Lu, you are wrong to say that. Chancellor Kong is doing this for the good of Li Xianan. How can you not distinguish between right and wrong? Furthermore, Hua Tsubing is such a hero. It's already amazing that there's one in 1,000 years. How can everyone be like Hua Tsubing? Cui Shanfu saw the opportunity and said in a weird tone. Qing Yaojin curled his lip. I'm arguing with Chancellor Kong. Why are you interrupting? Cui Shanfu's face turned red. You? What about me? Qing Yaojin glared at him. Other people might be afraid of the Cui family, but Qing Yaojin wasn't. He was now part of the new aristocratic group, so he wasn't afraid of these old aristocratic families. Shut up. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Li Er knitted his brows and made the final decision. The 7 cultivators of true virtue sect has no respect for the imperial court and no respect for the law of the country. If they are destroyed, then so be it. Li Zishuan, come out and tell me, how did you single-handedly destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue? As soon as this question was asked, everyone quieted down. Qing Yaojin, Kong Yingda, and Cui Shanfu, these 3 people who were about to fight, stopped arguing. They all turned their attention to this side, because this question that Li Er asked was a question that everyone was concerned about. Others wanted to listen, but Li Zishuan was too lazy to talk about it, because there were too many things that needed to be avoided and paid attention to. If he didn't pay attention, it could cause very serious consequences. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Li Zishuan touched his nose and said embarrassedly, Your Majesty, it's a long story. You should discuss state affairs with the other ministers in this precious time. Otherwise, if you miss a drought or flood, how many innocent people will die? It won't be too late for me to talk about this later? Talk about it later? After hearing these words, all the ministers couldn't help but curse in their hearts. They had been waiting for an answer for so long, but he said that he would talk about it later? Later, your sister. The corner of Li Er's mouth twitched and he said angrily, Shut up! Say it now. Li Zishuan thought to himself, You already told me to shut up, so what else can I say? However, if he continued to act coquettishly at this time, Li Zishuan might go berserk. Therefore, Li Zishuan could only start to speak. Then, I'll talk about it. Your Majesty, you also know that many brothers were sacrificed in the first battle of Snake Spirit Mountain. At that time, I was filled with grief and indignation and had always wanted to avenge them. Therefore, I made the agreement that I would destroy a mountain sect alone. In the next 3 days, I worked hard day and night to avenge those soldiers who died. In 3 days I did 2 things. Li Er frowned when he heard this. Li Zishuan said all this at the beginning. In his opinion, it was all nonsense. If he were a modern person, he would definitely say at this moment, Old fart, stop scratching. Hurry up and get to the point. However, when he heard the last sentence, Li Er suddenly became interested and began to listen carefully. The first thing is to build mountaineering tools. Everyone should know that Snake Spirit Mountain is relatively high and the mountain path is narrow. If we set up traps and checkpoints in advance, it will definitely be easy to defend and difficult to attack. I thought about it. Since it's not easy to go up the mountain from the mountain path, I'll go up from the sky. Li Er said suspiciously, The sky? Don't tell me you're planning to fly up there? Although Li Zishuan was annoyed that he was interrupted, the person who interrupted him was Li Er, so it was naturally a different matter. He nodded and flattered. Your Majesty is truly wise. That's right, I was planning to build a tool that could fly up Snake Spirit Mountain. In the end, I succeeded. I relied on this tool to reach the peak of Snake Spirit Mountain and launched a surprise attack on the 7th cultivator of true virtue. Buzz buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was stunned. In this era, although there were some people with high martial arts who could rely on Qinggong to jump 30 feet high, that was far from flying in the sky. The sky was sacred and mysterious to the ancient people. Now, there was actually someone who could rely on a tool to fly to the peak of a mountain that was hundreds of feet high. This kind of thing subverted too many people's understanding. What kind of tool is so amazing? It can actually fly to a height of hundreds of feet? Did Li Xianji really fly to the peak of the mountain? Can a mortal fly so high? After some of the officials recovered from the shock, they couldn't help but whisper to each other. Li Zishuan cleared his throat and continued. In order to prevent this secret from being leaked to other countries, I will personally present the specific method of building this flying tool to your Majesty later. As the saying goes, the higher one stands, the further one can see. With this tool, our Tang Empire will always be able to predict the enemy's moves when we fight in the future. Good! Li Jing couldn't help but laugh and say, Your Majesty, Little Xian's actions can be considered as a meritorious service to our Tang Empire. However, this kind of tool must be in the hands of our Tang Empire. We can't let other countries learn it, or else we will be in a passive position. How could Li Er not know the importance of this matter? He nodded and said to Li Zishuan, If this thing is really as useful as you say, I will remember your merit. Li Zishuan curled his lips and thought to himself, Old Li, you owe me a lot of merit. When will you reward me for all my merits? Thank you, your Majesty. Although that was what he thought in his heart, Li Zishuan definitely wouldn't say that out loud. He wasn't a fool after all. Continue speaking. Tell me about the second thing you did. Chapter 544. The second matter? Upon hearing Li Er's question, the ministers in the hall recovered from their shock. Anyone with a bit of brain knew that flying to the top of the Snake Spirit Mountain was only the first step. The most important thing was how Li Zishuan single-handedly destroyed the entire 7 cultivators of true virtue. Such destructive power was like the work of a true immortal. They really couldn't figure out how Li Zishuan, who had a mortal body, was able to do it. Li Zishuan's heart tightened. He secretly thought that what was going to happen was going to happen. He glanced at the curious babies in the hall and said, After the mountaineering tools were made, this little minister was thinking about how to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue. Although I've been practicing martial arts since I was a child, I've only just stepped into the Grandmaster realm. Cheng Yaojin, Niu Jinda, Qin Xiong, and the others almost vomited blood after hearing this. They all wanted to drag Li Zishuan over and beat him up. What did he mean by I've only just stepped into the Grandmaster realm? How could these old generals, who broke through to the Grandmaster realm in their 30s or 40s, live? The sect master and the elders of the 7 cultivators of true virtue were all martial arts experts above the Grandmaster realm. Moreover, they had a 7-headed giant snake whose strength was comparable to my master's. If we fought with brute force, this little minister was definitely not their match. However, this little minister had no choice but to take revenge for the 215 soldiers. During those 2 days, this little minister tossed and turned in bed, thinking about it day and night. Finally, this little minister remembered that before my master passed away, he gave me something. What is it? Li Er knitted his brows and asked in a deep voice. Among the people in the hall, Li Er's understanding of Li Zishuan was definitely at the forefront. After hearing Li Zishuan's words just now, Li Er muttered in his heart. He felt that there must be something wrong with this kid's word. Li Zishuan raised his head and closed his eyes, as if he was recalling something. Then, he said with a sad face, Before my master died, he compressed all his true qi into a fist-sized iron ball. This ball was made of extraterrestrial iron and was extremely hard. Later, when my master gave me the Zhen Qi iron ball, he also taught me a method to detonate the Zhen Qi inside the iron ball. He also told me that if I were to encounter a life or death crisis in the future, I could detonate the Zhen Qi inside the iron ball, which could instantly turn all the enemies within a radius of 200 feet into ashes. However, this method could easily harm others and oneself. But this time, with the help of a flying mountaineering tool, he was able to avoid the explosion of the true Qi iron ball. Last night, after I flew to the summit of the Spirit Snake Mountain, I detonated the true Qi iron ball left behind by my master and threw it down. After a loud explosion, the 7 cultivators of true virtue was reduced to ashes in an instant. This is the heavenly lightning and earthly fire General Ox saw at the foot of the mountain. After saying that, Li Zixuan took a deep breath. From an outsider's point of view, he was grieving because he thought of his deceased master. However, the truth was that he was muttering in his heart, "That's right. I'm sorry, my great master. This is a serious matter, so I have to ask you to come out and be my shield again. Next time when I go to Mount Longhu, I'll bring you some good wine and burn a few paper wives for you." The more Li Er listened, the more he felt that it was strange. Why did this thing sound like a plot from a novel? He couldn't help but frown and scold. Nonsense! How come I've never heard of anyone who can compress true Qi into an iron ball? Take out another iron ball and show it to me. Li Zixuan couldn't help but feel his teeth ache. Others didn't suspect anything, so why did old Li blindly join in the fun? In the end, wasn't I hiding the truth for the sake of the imperial court? In fact, Li Zixuan's nonsense just now had attracted the attention of many officials in the imperial court. They didn't have too many doubts. In their view, if Li Zixuan could even do something as inconceivable as flying in the sky, what was so shocking about his master, who was rumored to be like a god, making an exploding iron ball with his lifetime's worth of cultivation? Hearing Li Zixuan's question, many people couldn't help but quickly retreat. A few ministers who were closer to Li Zixuan ran away quickly because they were afraid that Li Zixuan would really take out another true Qi iron ball. Li Zixuan didn't expect that his nonsense would have such an effect. He awkwardly coughed and said, "Your Majesty, this kind of heaven-defying object is not easy to make. This is because a large amount of true Qi must be fully compressed in order to make this thing have a large destructive range. My master exhausted all his skills and only managed to make one. Therefore, I don't have anything like that with me. However, this thing does exist. If you don't believe me, I can't make a true Qi iron ball for you." This was considered a scoundrel, but Li Zixuan really had no other way. The Zhenqi steel ball was the best excuse he could think of in a short period of time. Even though there might be loopholes in it, he had no other way. He could only resign himself to fate. No matter what, he couldn't reveal the fact that he knew how to make explosives in front of so many people. However, even Li Zixuan himself didn't expect that when he resigned himself to his fate, he would actually be blessed with good fortune. Someone that Li Zixuan had never expected would actually stand up for him. "Your Majesty," this old servant once read in an ancient book that martial arts experts at the peak of the great Grandmaster realm can indeed condense their genuine Qi. Although the genuine Qi iron ball that Li Xianan just mentioned sounds incredible, theoretically speaking, it is possible. However, if it is put into practice, it is extremely dangerous. I'm afraid that only an expert like spiritual master Ling Su would dare to be so daring as to dance on the tip of a knife. The person who came out was Zhao Song, the man with the highest martial strength in the entire hall. He shouldn't be considered a man. Ever since he had returned to Taiji Palace, Zhao Song had been thinking about what Li Zixuan meant by borrowing some of my master's shadow. When Li Zixuan had explained the entire incident from beginning to end, Zhao Song was suddenly enlightened. At the same time, he couldn't help but wonder if Li Zixuan's method of compressing vital Qi and detonating it would work. After he had figured everything out, Zhao Song's heart was suddenly enlightened. At this moment, he was so impressed by Li Zixuan's master, spiritual master Lingxiu, that he would prostrate himself in admiration. Spiritual master Ling Su, who was in the tomb, expressed his innocence. All of this was caused by Li Zixuan. Actually, this so-called true Qi iron ball or true Qi bomb was just something that Li Zixuan made up based on some fantasy novels that he read in his previous life. It was a little like Xiao Yan's Buddha's angry lotus flame in Battle Through the Heavens. The difference was that the angry lotus flame was fused with a heavenly flame, compressed it, and then thrown into a group of enemies to explode. However, the general principle was similar. Originally, it was an excuse that he came up with at the last minute. Now that Zhao Song had explained it, Li Zixuan felt that he was really a genius. When the officials heard Li Zixuan say that there was only one true Qi iron ball, they all heaved a sigh of relief. This thing was so awesome that anyone would be afraid of it. Now that they heard Zhao Song's explanation, most of them no longer had any doubts about Li Zixuan's ability to kill Qi Xiu alone. However, Li Er still felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, "But," the word "but" came to an abrupt end. It was because he saw Li Zixuan winking at him. At this moment, Li Er was really angry and amused. He was the emperor, but there was actually an official who dared to wink at him? Then this matter will end here. Officials, if you have something to discuss, please report. If not, the court is dismissed. After all, Li Er was not stupid. He thought of something and said loudly. Chapter 545. Hearing about such a bizarre battle during the morning court assembly, many of the ministers were satisfied. Cheng Yaojin was beaming with joy, his face extremely proud. It was as if Li Zixuan was his son and had done such a great thing, and he was also proud of it. Other than Li Er, who didn't believe Li Zixuan's words, there was another person in the hall. That was Li Chengqian, who had been standing below Li Er to listen to the morning court session. The reason why he didn't believe Li Zixuan was because when he went to the workshop a few days ago, he heard a loud bang. Although the power wasn't enough to shake the earth, it was still shocking. Li Chengqian felt that the thing was a miniature version of the weapon Li Zixuan used on Snake Spirit Mountain. Li Zixuan just said that spiritual master Lingxiu only gave him one true Qi iron ball. Either Li Zixuan was lying and there was more than one true Qi iron ball, or the thing that destroyed Snake Spirit Mountain was not a true Qi iron ball at all. Although he knew that Li Zixuan must be hiding something, Li Chengqian did not expose his good brother. He only looked at Li Zixuan with a faint smile. Seeing that no one in the hall had anything to report, Li Er got up and prepared to leave. Zhao Song understood and said in a sharp voice, "Court assembly is dismissed. Farewell, Your Majesty." The ministers bowed. After Li Er left, other than a few old generals who had a good relationship with him, the rest deliberately kept a distance from Li Zixuan. Cui Shanfu's expression was complicated. There was fear, relief, and resentment. He glanced at Li Zixuan and left in a hurry. "Mr. Li, His Majesty has an order for you to go to the Sweet Dew Hall for an audience." With no one bothering him, Li Zixuan was happy to be free. He wanted to chat with Cheng Yaojin as they left the palace, but Zhao Song came over and said. Li Zixuan was speechless. He had not even walked down the stairs of the Taiji Palace, and Li Er had asked Zhao Song to call him. Old Li must be in a hurry. Looks like I can't escape this calamity. Alright, I'll go to the Sweet Dew Hall now. Thank you for speaking up for me just now, Chief Zhao. Li Zixuan calmed himself down and said reluctantly, escape is impossible. However, his last sentence of gratitude was sincere. Zhao Song's explanation in the court just now was more or less of a help. Haha. Mr. Li, you must be joking. I'm just telling the truth. I'm not helping anyone, Zhao Song said calmly as he led Li Zixuan in the direction of Taiji Palace. Li Zixuan smiled and didn't say anything. With his current status, there was no need for him to deliberately make friends or curry favor with anyone. On the other hand, we have to thank Li Xiannan. Spiritual Master Ling Su is a genius, to be able to think of such an unimaginable method. I've benefited greatly from it. Although I can't condense my qi outside my body, I can try compressing it inside my body. Perhaps I can break through the shackles of my realm. After walking for a while, Zhao Song suddenly stopped in his tracks and said to Li Zixuan, Gosh, why are you so unrestrained? Li Zixuan's jaw dropped. 10,000 alpacas galloped across his heart. This Zhao Song was truly a lunatic. In his previous life, Li Zixuan had never come into contact with martial arts, so he naturally didn't know about these twists and turns. However, in this life, he was a martial arts master, so of course he knew how powerful it was. Even he didn't dare to do something like compressing his qi, because it could easily cause his meridians to explode and turn him into a cripple. What he said just now was just an excuse to cover up the explosion on Snake Spirit Mountain. He never thought that Zhao Song, who looked honest on the surface, had such a reckless heart. Supervisor Zhao, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but the risks of compressing the genuine qi far outweigh the benefit. Back then, my master abandoned everything to do this at the last moment of his life. You still have to consider it carefully. Zhao Song had more or less helped him. Li Zixuan didn't want Zhao Song, a great master, to become a cripple because of his nonsense. If Li Er knew, he would probably mess with him. Haha. On the path of martial arts, I definitely can't go as far as spiritual master Ling Su. In the end, I like to be overcautious and timid. This time, no matter what, I have to try it myself. Zhao Song said with a smile as if he was touched. Your humble servant pays his respects to your majesty. After chatting with Zhao Song for a while, the two of them arrived at the Sweet Dew Hall. Li Zixuan bowed to Li Er as he prayed in his heart that the stubborn old man Zhao Song wouldn't explode in the future. Haha. You sure run fast. Did you forget the promise you made in the imperial court? Li Er waved his hand and said in a bad mood. His hands were itching now, mainly because Li Zixuan was asking for a beating. Li Zixuan hurriedly smiled and said, Haha. I didn't forget. How would I dare to forget? Here, your majesty, this is the tool I used to fly up the Snake Spirit Mountain last night. The blueprints are all here. As Li Zixuan spoke, he took out a stack of blueprints from his sleeve. These were the blueprints he had drawn in the workshop for the past 3 days. Li Er didn't put on airs and personally went forward to take them. He casually flipped through them and looked at Li Zixuan and asked, This mushroom-like thing can fly up to a height of 1,000 feet? Li Zixuan smiled and said, Of course. If your majesty doesn't believe me, you can go to my house to take a look in the future. That thing is still in my courtyard. Li Er was furious when he heard that. Bastard! Why didn't you keep such a national treasure well and leave it in your courtyard? If it was stolen by thieves and fell into the hands of other countries, how many of our Tang Empire's soldiers would die in vain? When you go back, immediately send that thing to the palace. Since you can't keep it well, I'll keep it for you. Openly robbing, and it was a righteous robbery. How could Li Zixuan, who had dealt with Li Er so many times, not know that the latter half of Li Er's sentence was the main point? He hurriedly said, Don't. Your Majesty, I will definitely keep that thing well in the future. If you really want that thing, can't you ask the craftsman to make another one according to the blueprints? Oh, right, if the craftsman can't understand this blueprint, you can ask Qin Ke to teach them. Qin Ke knows this. Get lost. At the mention of Li Tai, Li Er was even more furious. He pointed at Li Zixuan and scolded, You brat, you still have the nerve to mention Qin Quebec. I originally wanted him to learn from you, but now he has been bewitched by you to build a house in the Cloud Mountain. My son is actually building a house for you. You're getting bolder and bolder. Chapter 546. Inside the Sweet Nectar Hall. Seeing Li Er's furious appearance, the palace maids and eunuchs at the side hurriedly lowered their heads. Previously, they had only seen Wei Jing who could make Li Er lose his composure. They didn't expect that today there would be another Li Zixuan. Sure enough, heroes came from the youth. Cough, cough. Your Majesty, please calm down. Building a house is also a kind of learning. There is a saying in Taoism called entering the world to cultivate. If Prince Wei stays in the palace for a long time, it won't be good for his character growth. I believe your Majesty understands this point. Otherwise, you wouldn't have allowed Qin Ke to go to Cloud Mountain. Lier laughed. He didn't agree or disagree. He thought for a while and then said meaningfully, "Let's not talk about this for now. Is there something you forgot to tell me?" Li Zishuan was stunned. Then, he suddenly thought of something and immediately put on a fawning expression. "Ayaya! Your Majesty, you are too polite. This humble subject only presented a few blueprints, and you want to reward this humble subject heavily. In fact, this humble subject will be grateful if you reward me with something else. Why do you want this humble subject to personally choose the reward? As the saying goes, thunder and rain are the grace of the emperor. This humble subject—" "Shut up!" Lier couldn't listen to him anymore. His expression was as if he was a dog. He said angrily, "When did this humble subject mention a reward to you? This humble subject is asking you to truthfully tell me the method you used to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue." He didn't expect that there would be such a shameless and daring person in this world. He was both angry and amused. "So it's not a reward?" Li Zishuan was stunned. He muttered, touched his nose and said embarrassedly, "Cough, cough. The method to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue was an iron ball of true qi. Didn't this humble subject just say it in the imperial court?" Lier glared at him and said angrily, "Humph! You can fool others with that nonsense, but don't think you can fool me. Quickly tell me the truth. You brat, you're getting bolder and bolder. You even dare to lie to me." If someone else dared to be so naughty in front of Lier would have long ordered people to drag him out and behead him. However, this person was Li Zishuan. Therefore, Lier felt helpless. Li Zishuan was so capable that any monarch who had slightly opened his burning point would choose to put him in an important position. Of course, Lier was no exception. Feeling Li Zishuan's aggressive gaze, Li Zishuan shrunk his neck and said hesitantly, "Actually, the thing that I used to bomb the 7 cultivators of true virtue that night was a type of strong gunpowder. The general principle behind it is similar to that iron ball made of true qi. The only difference is that it wasn't made by my master, but by me." Hearing this, Lier's breathing suddenly quickened. As expected. I've long guessed that it's impossible for there to be only one of these things. You can definitely make more. However, what is a strong gunpowder? At this time, the term gunpowder had yet to appear. The person who truly defined gunpowder was Song Yingxing of the Ming Dynasty. He wrote in the Heavenly Works of Creation, Gunpowder is mainly made of saltpeter and sulfur, supplemented by plant ash. Saltpeter is of the extreme yin nature, while sulfur is of the extreme yang nature. When these 2 divine objects meet, there is no gap between them. When they appear, people will be shocked and their souls will scatter. However, the appearance of gunpowder could be traced back to the spring and autumn period. According to the Fanzi Yeren, gunpowder was already used in China during the spring and autumn period. According to Fanzi Yeren, gunpowder was already used in the common people's livelihood. Of course, gunpowder at that time only referred to saltpeter. This was because saltpeter could directly ignite or explode when it collided with organic matter. When it came to gunpowder that was slightly more powerful, it had to be refined into a pill alchemist. This was because the original use of gunpowder in China was to be used in the fire process of refining pills. In ancient times, when it came to poisonous metals such as sulfur and arsenic, they would often burn them before using them. The word burn meant to subdue them. To make the toxicity lose or reduce, this procedure was called fire suppression. After Li Zishuan heard Lier's words, he choked for a moment. What did he mean by, "I already guessed that there was more than one"? After all this time, he was tricked. "Your Majesty, gunpowder is a medicine that can be ignited by sparks, flames, and so on. When these things burn fiercely in a very narrow space, it will cause an explosion. This can actually be used as the ignition agent in the fire suppression procedure of Taoist alchemy. After cursing Li Zixuan several times in his heart for having little Gg, Li Zixuan gloomily explained. When Li Er heard the word alchemy, his eyes suddenly lit up. He asked, "You also know alchemy?" Li Zixuan looked at Li Er's expression and knew what he was thinking. He hurriedly said, "Of course I don't know this. My master once said that the art of alchemy is the biggest scam of Taoism. Back then, ever since the first emperor recruited alchemists to refine the elixir of immortality, the world has been changing dynasties for nearly 800 years, but there has never been anyone who can live forever. This is just a scam to confuse people." After saying so much, Li Zixuan still didn't want Li Er to go astray. Li Er couldn't help but blush when his thoughts were seen through. After he calmed down, he said with a straight face again, "I also understand that the art of alchemy is just a small matter, but this gunpowder is so important to my Tang Empire. Why didn't you tell the truth in the imperial court just now?" Li Er stared sharply at Li Zixuan's face and asked word by word. Li Zixuan's heart tightened. He knew that the most important test was coming. He hurriedly stopped smiling and said seriously, "Your Majesty, the power of this gunpowder is enough to destroy the world. It is precisely because it is so important to the country that this humble subject doesn't dare to reveal it in front of others. There is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. No one can guarantee that all the officials in the Taiji Palace are working together with your Majesty. Once the gunpowder is leaked, with this kid's previous example of bombing the 7 cultivators sect, all the other forces will definitely covet the gunpowder and send all kinds of spies to find out the formula. Once they find out the formula, it will definitely be a disaster for the Tang Empire's army. After all, gunpowder is a double-edged sword. It can hurt others and also hurt oneself. This is a serious matter, so I have to be careful. That's why I lied in the imperial court just now. I hope your Majesty can forgive me." Li Er's expression turned cold. When Li Zixuan said this, he instantly thought of many bad things. At present, the Tang Empire had just been established, and Li Er had only been in power for less than a year. His control of the Tang Empire had not reached the point where he could sit back and relax. Aristocratic families, external enemies, internal troubles, external troubles, these were all unstable factors hidden in the dark. If he was careless, he might lose the whole game. Not bad. I'm very pleased that you can think of these things. Li Zixuan, you didn't disappoint me. After a long time, Li Er sighed. His expression gradually softened as he looked at Li Zixuan and said. Chapter 547. In the Ganlu Palace. It was rare for Li Zixuan to hear Li Er speak human language. He couldn't help but feel a little better. Wasn't he working so hard for the sake of Great Tang? Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty. In addition to what I said earlier, I also believe that Great Tang doesn't need gunpowder at all. What do you mean? Li Er asked with some confusion. Li Zixuan stood with his hands behind his back and said, Your Majesty, Great Tang's army is full of valiant generals and high morale. What we lack now is not combat power, but the country needs to rest and recuperate. Once the people are rich and the treasury is full, the Turks in the north will be wiped out. Gunpowder is just icing on the cake, it's not the key to victory. Currently, gunpowder may be useful for defending a city, but for attacking, once the other party spreads the cavalry, gunpowder won't be effective. On the contrary, once gunpowder is used in war, we have to be prepared for other people to research gunpowder and use it on us. I feel that the gains don't make up for the losses. Although they had gunpowder now, gunpowder and cannons were two different things. If they wanted to make cannons for attacking, they still needed to solve many technical problems. Unless they were like Li Zixuan, who used a fighter jet to bomb the 7 cultivators of Virtue sect, gunpowder would have a limited effect in war. Moreover, if someone secretly learned the gunpowder formula, It would be really troublesome. Li'er shook his head and said, although what you said is reasonable, how can I give up eating for fear of choking? The power of gunpowder is beyond doubt. I believe that as long as we keep it a secret, there won't be a problem. As for how to use gunpowder for attacking, didn't you already do it yesterday? It seems that Li'er also wants to use yesterday's bombing of the 7 cultivators of virtue. Li Zishuan quickly shook his head and said, Your Majesty, this is not the same. For the time being, this subject will call the mountaineering tool the celestial lamp. Although the celestial lamp can fly hundreds of feet high in the sky, its flying direction is completely dependent on the direction of the wind. Wherever the wind blows, it will follow, just like a sailboat on the sea. The situation on the battlefield changes rapidly. How can we pin our hopes on the unreliable direction of the wind? Li'er asked doubtfully, Then how did you do it last night? I remember that it wasn't a southwest wind last night. Ugh! Li Zishuan said awkwardly, Your Majesty, I used my true qi to forcefully change the direction of the celestial lamp last night. I'm afraid it's very difficult for people below the guru level to achieve this. Li'er was speechless. The 7 cultivators of true virtue is truly unlucky to have provoked you, brat. Li Zishuan awkwardly smiled and stood there without saying anything. A man can't be a man if he doesn't take revenge. If there was someone to blame, then blame the people from the 7 cultivators of true virtue for provoking him. Li'er clasped his hands behind his back and walked 2 steps. Suddenly, he asked meaningfully, There must be other reasons besides the ones you just mentioned, right? With that, he stared into Li Zishuan's eyes with a faint smile, waiting for an answer. A few drops of sweat suddenly appeared on Li Zishuan's forehead. It was said that the emperor was very suspicious, and Li Zishuan was no exception. How should he explain this? Brat, even if you don't say it, I already know. You didn't dare to tell the truth in the imperial court because you were afraid that I would feel that you were too big of a threat and suspect you, right? Li'er saw Li Zishuan struggling and unable to say anything. He laughed loudly and walked over. Sizing up Li Zishuan, he said, You don't need to quibble. That's what you were thinking at the time. Haha. I remember telling you before that under my command, you can use as many talents as you want. Although the situation with the gunpowder is very special, I still know what kind of temperament you have, brat. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you live until today because of what you did. Li'er's face turned slightly cold as he finished speaking. Li Zishuan was silent. He secretly thought that Li'er had his reasons for becoming an eternal emperor. His vision and breadth of mind were things that many emperors didn't have. After a long while, Li Zishuan faintly sighed and cupped his hands. Thank you for your trust, Your Majesty. I don't have any great ambitions in this life. I just want to lie at home and live a leisurely life with my wife and parents. I don't want to participate in these disputes. Of course, I also hope that Tang Empire is infinitely powerful. It's best if it's so powerful that no one dares to provoke us. Then, I can peacefully enjoy my life at home. Li'er glanced at him and snorted. Useless. Wait until you help me develop Tang Empire to a point where no one dares to provoke us, then we can talk about enjoying your life. Li Zishuan smiled and said, Your Majesty, contentment brings joy. What is being successful and not being successful? Anyway, I'm very satisfied with my current life. Don't I still have Your Majesty to worry about other things? Li Zishuan's words were sincere. He wouldn't exchange his current lifestyle even if he was given the title of emperor. Didn't you see how Li'er, the emperor, was so busy every day that his feet didn't touch the ground and was even criticized by the haters? It was really tough. How could it be as comfortable as him hugging his wife? Brat, according to what you said, you don't even care about my throne now? Li'er said with some dissatisfaction. If it were anyone else who heard this, they would definitely be scared half to death. However, after having a heart-to-heart talk with Li'er today, Li Zishuan had a better understanding of old Li's personality. He wasn't afraid and just said casually, "I didn't say that. I don't care about my position, I don't care about politics. I just want to be a good son and a good husband. I don't care about other things." "Heh, you brat." Li pointed at Li Zishuan and then walked back to the table and sat down. Li Zishuan felt that today's conversation was about done. He felt around his chest and took out a small piece of paper. He stepped forward and handed it to Li. "Your Majesty, this is the formula for gunpowder. Forgive me for speaking out of turn, but this formula must be kept a secret. Moreover, if your Majesty really wants to make gunpowder, you must not do it in the bustling areas of Chang'an. Once an accident occurs, not only will it alarm those with ill intentions, it will also cause a large number of innocent casualties." Li stared at the small piece of paper and his face slightly flushed. He didn't take it and instead asked, "You handed over such an important thing so easily?" Li Zishuan said seriously, "Your Majesty, as I said before, I don't have any great ambitions. If it wasn't for the 7 cultivators sect forcing me into a corner, I wouldn't have used gunpowder. Now that I've made gunpowder, this national treasure should be handed over to your Majesty for safekeeping. I can't think of any use for it." "Good. Immortal lamp, gunpowder. Don't worry, since you took the initiative to offer these 2 things, I won't treat you unfairly." Li took the small piece of paper and said in a deep voice. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Go. Chapter 548. More than an hour ago, in a private room of the Junue restaurant. Inside, there were 5 young masters who were dressed luxuriously and had extraordinary appearances. Their nobility and elegance were clearly not something that could be nurtured by a poor family. The 5 of them sat opposite each other and did not deliberately maintain the order of the seat. Among them, the young man named Xianji said, "Li Zishuan first flattened the price of books, and then he launched the dictionary of the Tang Dynasty. Such actions are tantamount to digging at the foundation of the Shandong landowning clans. I believe that all the brothers present can see this. Xianji is right. Since the establishment of the Li Tang dynasty, the Shandong gentry have been suppressed repeatedly and have long lost their former glory. Now we have to pay attention to the actions of this Li Xianji. He is shaking the prestige of our families in the scholarly circle." A slightly older man sitting next to Xianji took over the conversation. How can a small dictionary shake the foundation of the Shandong gentry? Chui Xuanji Chui Shen, when have the people of the Chui family of Qinghe and the Chui family of Bowling been so timid?" Hearing these 2 people talking, the handsome young man sitting on the outside sneered discontentedly. It turned out that the people sitting in this room today were all outstanding representatives of the 5 surnames and 7 hope. Chui Xuanji of the Chui family of Qinghe, Chui Shen of the Chui family of Bowling, Zheng Huijie of the Zheng family of Xingyang, Lu Qingqing of the Lu family of Fanyang, and Li Jingxian of the Li family of Zhao County. Now 5 of the 5 surnames and 7 hopes were here. The Li family of Longxi and the Wang family of Taiyuan were not here. To be able to be chosen as the representative of each family, these people naturally had their own outstanding aspects. Right now, perhaps they were still not well known because Li Yuan and Li these 2 generations of emperors, were doing their best to suppress the Shandong landowning households. After a few more years, many of them would stand out in the court. For example, Lu Qingqing, who was the prime minister during the Gaozong period, Chui Shen. Although this person did not have many achievements in the officialdom, he later had a very powerful son named Chui Xuanji. This person also served as the prime minister during the Gaozong period. During the Wu Zhou period, in order to support the crown prince, Li Xian, to ascend the throne, he launched a coup and was conferred the title of prince. Zheng Huijie. Today is different from the past. You and I have both seen the plight of the aristocratic families. The emperor's ambition is also clear as day. At this time, you still have high standards but little ability. Could it be that you will only wake up when we are all reduced to ordinary families? Cui Xuanji said with an ugly expression. Heh. You really have groundless fears. In any case, the Cui family was a rich and powerful family that had lasted for thousands of years. Even if the current emperor intended to weaken the aristocratic families, could he really do anything to the Cui family? It's true that our families are being suppressed now, but I think it's just because Li Tangchu and the Li family of Longxi want to raise the status of the Guanlong nobles. At this moment, we only need to lie low. When the crown prince takes the throne, we will definitely have more opportunities. Zheng Huaijie retorted somewhat disapprovingly. It had to be said that although this guy was a little arrogant, he had a good grasp of the overall situation. In China's history, aristocratic politics, sprouted in the Eastern Han Dynasty and died at the end of the Tang Dynasty. Therefore, some people felt that the aristocratic family politics, from the Eastern Han Dynasty, through the Wei, Jin, Southern and Northern dynasties, to the Sui and Tang dynasties, gradually weakened and died out following the disappearance of the two great privileges of the economic, occupying farmland shady guest system, and the political, 9 ranks of the emperor system, without any rebound. In fact, this was a great misunderstanding. Because in terms of historical facts, in China's aristocratic politics era, there were 2 most glorious periods. One was the Wei-Jin Northern and Southern dynasties, and the other was the Tang dynasty. In the Tang dynasty, especially in the Middle and Late Tang dynasty, aristocratic politics didn't dim. On the contrary, it strangely became glorious again. At the beginning of the Tang dynasty, the Shandong nobles were indeed greatly suppressed. First, the Guanlong military group still had a lot of power at that time. Second, the emperor deliberately suppressed them. Third, in the vigorously promoted imperial examination system, many ministers of the illegitimate family appeared. At that time, the 5 families were not used to this kind of official method. Fourth, the court officials who came from humble families were jealous. However, after Empress Wu came to power, on one hand, she suppressed the old ministers of the Guanlong nobles and eliminated political resistance. On the other hand, she began to use the Shandong nobles. For example, Li Jingxian, who came from the Li family of Zhao County, was recognized by Empress Wu at this time and walked into the center of power. After the Anlushan rebellion, the political center of the Tang dynasty was rebuilt. The power to suppress the nobles was no longer as fierce as it was under Li Yuan and Li Er. The 5 families also used the imperial examination system to rise up fiercely. For example, the Jing family of Xingyang. During the Tang dynasty, it was hard to find a prime minister. However, from the middle of the Tang dynasty onwards, there were more than 10 prime ministers and important ministers. Another example would be the Cui family of Qinghe. In the Tang dynasty, there were 10 people from the branch house, the South Ancestral branch, the Qinghe main branch, the Qinghe small branch, and the Qingzhou branch. Before the Anlushan rebellion, there were only 2 people who were prime ministers. After the rebellion, 8 of them became prime ministers. The reason why the nobles of Shandong were able to rise again was because of the change in the attitude of those in power. Another reason was that after adapting to the imperial examination system, the profound family tradition and knowledge of the nobles gave them a special advantage in the imperial examination. For example, the Lu family of Fanyang had more than 100 people in the Tang dynasty, especially from the middle of the Tang dynasty onwards. This number was shocking. One must know that in the Tang dynasty, the Jinshi examination was the most difficult. The number of people who were admitted was also very small. The Lu family was able to have such results because of their family traditions and knowledge. Therefore, if the nobles wanted to develop, they had to wait for the right time. Li Jingxian nodded and said, Xuanji, although Huaijia's words are offensive, they are not without reason. Right now, we should wait patiently and not take the initiative to cause trouble. However, Lu Qingqing frowned and said, Jingxian, you're wrong. Ever since Li Zishuan appeared in Chang'an, the speed of his rise has left people dumbfounded. Everything that Qing Guanji has done seems to be deliberately going against us. Recently, I even heard that he wants to build some Yanhuang Academy and develop engineering. It's really absurd. Qing Guanji suspects that he is a tool that His Majesty arranged to suppress the nobles. The current situation is no different from boiling a frog in warm water. If we don't take action soon, sooner or later, our foundation will be nibbled away. If the Cui family wants to deal with Li Zishuan, the Lu family is willing to help. Cui Xuanji smiled and said, Brother Qingqing is really far-sighted and righteous. Then, he turned to Zheng Huaijie and Li Jingxian and said, Brother Zheng, Brother Li, time waits for no man. If Li Zishuan is allowed to do as he pleases, the situation of our families will be even more worrying. Please reconsider carefully. Cui Xin chimed in, Huaijie Jingxian, I believe that with your foresight, you can't see Li Zishuan's threat. Please consider the big picture. In the current situation, 3 out of the 5 families had formed a united front. Hesitation appeared on Li Jingshuan's face. After a while, he stood up and said, In that case, the Li family of Zhao County is also willing to help. However, this is a serious matter. Jingxian will have to discuss it with my father. Of course, of course. Cui Xuanji smiled and nodded with a hint of joy. Chapter 549. After Li Jingxian agreed to join the temporary alliance, everyone looked at Zheng Huaijie again. It was no longer about Li Zishuan, but whether the Zheng family still wanted to play with the other 4 major families in the future. Zheng Huaijie wasn't stupid. He could also figure out the crux of the matter. A moment later, he waved his hand in annoyance and said, Fine, fine, fine. Do whatever you want. But our Zheng family is only responsible for providing the money, not the manpower. Good, good, good. Cui Xuanji was overjoyed. He was about to say something when someone knocked on the door. Young master, I have something important to report. The atmosphere in the room was stifling. Logically speaking, no servant would come and disturb such an important meeting. Apart from Li Jingxian, the other 4 people all had anger on their faces. Li Jingxian hurriedly said, Please don't blame him. I'll go out and teach him a lesson right now. It's okay. It's okay. Although everyone was a little displeased, the good education they had received since they were young still made them not speak ill of him, and they all expressed that they did not mind. Li Jingxian cupped his hands, opened the door, and walked out. After half an hour, Li Jingxian returned to the room, but he looked a little upset. When everyone was about to ask him, Li Jingxian cupped his hands and said, Sorry, everyone. Everyone, I'm very sorry. Something urgent has cropped up in Jingshuan's family, so he can't stay here any longer. Also, Xianji, the Li family of Zhao County will no longer be involved in the matter of Li Zishuan. Just pretend that Jingxian never came here today. Goodbye. Then, Li Jingxian left without waiting for everyone to recover from the shock. Hey. Brother Li, please wait. What on earth happened? Cui Xuanji was stunned for a while, but Li Jingxian was nowhere to be seen. Xuanji, forget it. Since Jingxian is not willing, we can't force him. Cui Shen walked over and patted Cui Xuanji's shoulder. That's the only way. But fortunately there are still 4 of us. This time, we will definitely ruin Li Zishuan's reputation. Cui Xuanji sighed regretfully. Just as he finished speaking, there was an urgent knock on the door. Young master, bad news. I have something important to report. It was almost the same tone and the same words. Everyone couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. Zheng Huijie stood up, cupped his hands and apologized. Then, he hurried out of the door. After a while, Zheng Huijie walked in with an embarrassed face and said quickly, "I'm sorry, everyone. I have something urgent to deal with at home. The Zheng family of Xinjiang won't be involved in the fight against Li Zishuan. Goodbye." The 3 people in the room were stunned. In less than a quarter of an hour, 2 out of the 5 alliances had withdrawn. Such a fragile alliance was ironic. Cui Xuanji's face alternated between green and white. He was the one who hosted today's meeting. Now that things had turned out this way, it was a slap to his face, a slap to the Cui family's face. However, Li Jingxian and Zheng Huijie had left in a hurry, and Cui Xuanji had nowhere to vent his anger. He was both frustrated and confused. Bam! 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 "Young master. Bad news. Bad news. I have something important to report." As soon as Zheng Huijie left, there was a series of hurried knocks on the door. Lu Qingqing looked at Cui Xuanji and Cui Shen helplessly and walked out without saying anything. Half an hour later, Lu Qingqing walked in with a solemn face. Just as he was about to speak, Cui Xuanji interrupted him. "Brother Lu, is the Zheng family of Xinjiang also withdrawing? What exactly happened? Can you tell me first?" Lu Qingqing said awkwardly, "Ahem. Xuanji, something big has happened. You should receive the news soon. I'll take my leave first. The Lu family will also not be involved in the fight against Li Zishuan." After that, he ignored Cui Xuanji's dissuasion and left. Cui Xuanji looked at Cui Shen anxiously and said, "Cousin, what should we do now? Why did they go back on their words in the blink of an eye?" During the Western Zhou dynasty, the son of Duke Ding of Qi, Jizi, gave the country to Shui while he himself took advantage of Cui Yi. After Jizi gave the country away, he was conferred the title of Cui minister and took Cui Yi as his surname. Ever since Jizi was conferred the title of Cui Yi, the Cui family began its own development process. After entering the Sui and Tang dynasties, according to the new Tang dynasty, the Cui family had 10 houses. The first was Zhengzhou, the second was Yanling, the third was Nanzhou, the fourth was Qinghe Big House, the fifth was Qinghe Small House, the sixth was Qinghe Qinzhou House, the seventh was Bowling and Bungalow, the eighth was Bowling Big House, the ninth was Bowling Second House, and the 10th was Bowling Third House. The first 6 houses belonged to the Qinghe Cui family, and the last 4 houses belonged to the Bowling Cui family. The 2 Cui families came from the same family and had always maintained a close relationship. That was why Cui Xuanji called Cui Shen his cousin. Cui Shen frowned and said, "Xuanji, there must be something we don't know about. Send someone out to find out if something big has happened." Cui Xuanji nodded and said, "Yes, cousin. Bam bam bam. Bad news, young master. Come in." At this time, a series of equally urgent knocks came from outside the house. Cui Xuanji's expression changed, and he shouted before the servant outside the house could finish speaking. Squeak! A young servant in green clothes and a green hat came in from outside the room. He looked strong and powerful. "Wu Jie, hurry up and tell me what happened." Cui Xuanji walked quickly to the servant and asked in a deep voice. "Huff! Young master, Li." Wu Jie was about to speak when he saw Cui Shen next to him. He hesitated and didn't know if he should continue. "Tell me." Cui Xuanji frowned and shouted. Yes, young master. I just received news that Li Zishuan, who disappeared for 3 days, has returned. Last night, the 7 cultivators of True Virtue sect was razed to the ground and wiped out. That 7-headed snake was also killed by Li Zishuan, and its corpse is hanging in front of the Li family's door for public display. Wu Jie no longer hesitated and told him everything he had found out. Boom! Cui Xuanji's mind went blank. He staggered 2 steps back and murmured, "Impossible! Impossible! I've never heard of the Imperial Army launching an attack on the 7 cultivators of True Virtue sect recently. Even if they did, it's impossible to take them down in such a short time. This must be a rumor. Wu Jie said with a bitter face. Young master, I saw everything with my own eyes. Li Zishuan just pointed at the seven-headed snake and told the people that if anyone wants to harm his family, no matter how powerful they are, they will be killed just like the seven-headed snake. Even if he has to chase them to the ends of the earth, he will kill them. Cui Xuanji roared angrily at his words. Damn it! They've gone too far. Chapter 550. Haha. Come, come, come. We brothers have been on the battlefield together. Let's not go home until we're drunk. Drunken Immortal Restaurant. Heaven, Private Room. Li Zishuan, Qing Chumo, Yuchi Baolin, Dugu Xian, and Dugu Feiying sat around a table full of delicacies, drinking to their heart's content. Li Zishuan was supposed to treat Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying to this meal. Earlier, when the Snake King tried to kill him outside Chang'an City, the two brothers had saved him in time. A few days ago, when they attacked Snake Spirit Mountain for the first time, Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying had also helped him a lot. If not for their extraordinary performance, he would not have been able to defeat Yin Batian alone, and the Imperial Army would have suffered more casualties that day. Therefore, when Li Zishuan returned from the Imperial Court, the first thing he did was to ask someone to invite the two brothers over. They had helped him so much. Logically speaking, it wasn't too much to treat them to a meal? Although Qing Chumo was only an observer during the attack on Snake Spirit Mountain, he felt that he had helped. When he heard that Li Zishuan was treating him to a meal, he quickly brought Yuchi Baolin along for the meal. When he heard Li Zishuan say that they would not leave until they were drunk, Qing Chumo laughed proudly. Heh! Who's afraid of you? Xiao Xian, you've only learned how to drink for a few months. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Ha ha! Li Zishuan rolled his eyes. I wonder who was the one who got drunk and fell under the table on my wedding day? Qing Chumo's face turned red and he said unhappily, Chow. That's because you cheated. Later, I finally remembered. You let the four of us drink in the front while you secretly hid at the back. Otherwise, you would have been the one who fell first. Looks like this kid is not stupid. Dugu Feiying looked at the wine in front of him, took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and said in enjoyment, Ha ha! I don't care who's better at drinking, as long as I have good wine to drink. After saying that, he picked up the wine cup and took a sip. Ha! Good wine. After drinking so much, little Xian, your drunken immortal is still the best. How satisfying! Awesome! The moment the drunken immortal entered his mouth, that spicy and domineering feeling ignited a ball of fire in his heart. Dugu Feiying recalled the sweet taste in his mouth, and said in a slightly intoxicated manner. Dugu Xian frowned. Feiying, don't be rude. The host hadn't even touched his chopsticks, but the guest had already started eating. This was an extremely rude behavior, whether it was in ancient times or modern times. Li Zishuan waved his hand and laughed. We are all good brothers. Why are you so particular about that? Xian, it's not that I want to scold you, but can't you smile more? It's easy to get depression if you put on a cold face every day. What is depression? Dugu Xian was taken aback as he asked. Ugh. Li Zishuan scratched his head and said, Depression? Depression is a prolonged period of depression. The patient's depression can range from melancholy to grief, inferiority complex, pessimistic, and even suicidal attempts or behaviors. Dugu Feiying was startled and quickly asked, Big brother, you don't have these symptoms, right? Don't take it too hard. Dugu Xian angrily slapped his unreliable younger brother and said while vomiting blood, No. Then, he seemed to feel that these two words weren't very convincing, so he added, I'm just not willing to talk a lot of the time, not because I'm depressed. Last night, I witnessed the destruction of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect at the foot of the mountain. Seeing my brothers get their revenge, I'm still very happy. Little Xian, although I don't know how you destroyed the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, I, Dugu Xian, am grateful to you from the bottom of my heart. Because of your actions, we were able to avenge our brothers without shedding any blood. After saying that, he raised his wine glass with both hands and said solemnly, "Let me toast you." Li Zishuan nodded and didn't say anything else. He raised his glass and drank it in one gulp. Then, he said, "We've fought side by side for so many times, and we're already brothers. There's no need to thank me. Besides, those brothers died because of me, so I have to avenge them personally." Yes, yes, yes. We're all brothers, so there's no need to be so polite. Come, come, let's drink together. Ching Chumo stood up and laughed. Drink. The reason it's drink and not cheers is because the word cheers hasn't appeared yet. The English word cheers originated in Ireland in the 16th century, and it originally meant toast. At that time, Irish drunkards had the habit of putting a piece of toast into a glass of whiskey or beer to improve the taste and remove the impurities. It was only in the 18th century that the word cheers took on the meaning it has today, and it developed into a congratulatory eulogy. After downing another glass of wine, everyone's faces were a little red. After all, this was the strongest drunken immortal. Yuchi Baolin wiped his mouth, looked at Li Zishuan, and asked, "Little Xian, last night, Chon Yo and I happened to see you sitting on a fireball and flying to the top of the Snake Spirit Mountain. What was that thing? How could it fly so high?" When the Dugu brothers heard that, they quickly looked at Li Zishuan curiously. They had come out to observe the situation after hearing the explosion at the top of the mountain last night. They weren't like Ching Chumo and Yuchi Baolin, who had brushed shoulders with Li Zishuan's fairy lamp. Therefore, when they heard that Li Zishuan had flown to the top of the mountain, they were very shocked. As for Ching Chumo, when he heard Yuchi Baolin mention last night's incident, his expression became a little unnatural. This fellow had clearly thought of the fairy joke. Hearing those words, Li Zishuan thought for a moment. Everyone present was the second generation of the military, so it was unlikely that they would commit treason. Thus, he told them about the celestial lamp and the iron ball made of Jinchi. As for the gunpowder, it was currently a top secret of the great Tang, so he could not reveal it to them. Hiss. F***ck. There's actually a tool in this world that can allow one to fly. This is too magical. Little Xian, can we go to your house and take a look at that fairy lamp later? After hearing Li Zishuan's story, Dugu Feiying's eyes widened, and he slammed the table excitedly. Even though he could use his qigong to jump a few meters high, a few meters and a few hundred meters were two completely different things, okay? The fairy lamp was a heaven-defying tool, and any man would want to experience that thrill. I want to go and take a look too. Right, little Xian, do you still have the true qi steel ball that your master left for you? You're so skilled in martial arts, so you probably don't need it anymore, right? Give me 2 of them? Ching Chumo stretched out his hand and said with a smile. Li Zishuan said angrily, "Give your head. It's gone." Ah? Why is it gone? Chapter 551. Oh, that's right. Feiying, Xian, did you too improve your martial arts in the previous battle? Li Zishuan suddenly asked after drinking for a while. He clearly remembered that when they first attacked the Snake Spirit Mountain, the 3 of them joined forces to deal with Een Batian, who was at the peak of Grand Master. Due to the gap in their realms, they were at a disadvantage at first, and Dugu Feiying was almost killed several times. However, he took advantage of the opportunity created by Li Zishuan and Dugu Xian to injure Een Batian with 3 throwing knives, which really blinded everyone. Later, Een Batian risked everything to kill Dugu Feiying first, and he used the first 6 swords of the Taishin 9 swords to save him. Dugu Xian also used a series of complicated swordsmanship to save Dugu Feiying, and his speed was only a little slower than his own. In the end, the 2 of them stabbed Een Batian one after another, severely injuring him. Such a battle record and such strength would definitely not appear in the battle against the Snake King in the eastern suburbs, which was why Li Zixuan asked. Dugu Feiying said excitedly, "Yes. That was the first time I fought a Grand Master outside the city. After I went back, I learned a lot, and the last time I was at the Snake Spirit Mountain, I learned something again, and that's how I injured Een Batian. Hey. I feel that my Xuanya throwing knives is about to reach the small success level. Am I right, big brother?" Dugu Xian nodded and said, "Yes. You've improved a lot. Although it's a narrow escape from death, it's also the fastest way to improve one's strength. Only between life and death can one achieve great things. First, we fought the Snake King, and then we fought the more powerful Een Batian. After these two battles, I feel that my lonely wind swordsmanship is about to reach the sixth sword." Qing Chumo looked at the two of them enviously, and he was annoyed that he didn't get to experience such a hot-blooded situation. Li Zixuan asked curiously, "Lonely wind swordsmanship? Is that the Dugu family's swordsmanship?" It was no wonder that he asked. Although he had a powerful master, he didn't know much about the martial arts names in Jianghu. Besides, in this era, Jianghu was still in its infancy, and there weren't many well-known martial arts techniques. Most martial artists' martial arts techniques were passed down from their families. Dugu Xian nodded and said, "It is indeed the Dugu family's swordsmanship." Feiying didn't like that since he was young. He found a book of throwing knives and swordsmanship from some corner of the family storehouse, and he has been practicing until now. Li Zixuan nodded thoughtfully and asked, "Xian, you said that you're about to reach the sixth sword. How many sword moves does this Lonely Wind sword art have in total?" If someone else had asked this question, Dugu Xian would definitely have given them the cold shoulder. After all, this sword technique was unique to the Dugu family and was not taught to outsiders. However, the person who asked this question was Li Zixuan. He thought for a moment and answered, "There are a total of 9 sword moves. I can only use the first 5 moves now, but I feel that I have already touched the threshold of the 6th move." 9 swordsmanship moves? Li Zixuan was startled when he heard this, and his expression suddenly became strange. Dugu Feiying didn't understand and asked curiously, "What's with your expression, Xiao Xian? My brother is already very powerful to be able to practice the 5th sword, okay? My dad is only at the 6th sword." Li Zixuan knew that this guy misunderstood. He quickly waved his hand and said, "I don't mean anything else. I just thought of another swordsmanship. It also has 9 sword moves." Dugu Feiying snorted and said, "There are many swordsmanship with 9 sword moves in this world. What's so strange about that?" "Yeah. Xiao Xian, doesn't your Taixian 9 swords also have 9 sword moves?" Qing Chumo, who had been with Li Zixuan for the longest time, knew the most about the situation. He also interrupted. Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "No, the swordsmanship I thought of is called Dugu 9 swords." "Dugu 9 swords?" Everyone couldn't help but exclaim in unison. Then, everyone's expression became strange. Dugu Xian couldn't help but say, "I've never seen this swordsmanship in my family. But from the name, it seems to be related to my Dugu family. Xiao Xian, tell me, where did this Dugu 9 swords come from?" Li Zixuan was secretly amused. "Of course, you haven't seen this swordsmanship before. This is a divine skill from Old Master Jin's novel. Where did you see it?" Actually, the reason why he mentioned the 9 swords beyond the swords was because Dugu Xian's words had coincidentally reminded him of the smiling, proud wanderer from his previous life. The other reason was that he had transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty, and he had mysteriously acquired martial arts. With his current martial arts realm and comprehension, some of the moves in Old Man Jin's novel seemed to make some sense, and it was worth pondering over. Li Zixuan used his powerful spiritual power to recall a little, then answered, "I heard from my master that this Dugu 9 swords was created by a senior who was known as the Sword Demon. He defeated all his enemies, defeated all his heroes, and defeated all his opponents. He was invincible in the world. The sword demon wanted an opponent who could make him defend himself with one move, but he couldn't get it. In the end, he buried his sword in an empty valley and died. He also had another name, Dugu. When the other four heard this, their eyes widened in shock. Dugu Feiying exclaimed, Dugu? That name is so domineering. There's actually such a strange person in the world? Then this Dugu 9 swords must be very powerful, right? Li Zixuan smiled and said, Of course. Dugu 9 swords has a total of 9 moves. Ultimate move, breaking sword move, breaking knife move, breaking spear move, breaking whip move, breaking rope move, breaking palm move, breaking arrow move, and breaking chi move. The Dugu 9 swords is the extreme of swordsmanship. There are a total of 360 variations, and it only attacks and does not defend. When you understand the sword intent of these 9 swords, there is nothing you cannot do, nothing you cannot come out of, and nothing you cannot enter. Damn. That's awesome. Xiao Xian, do you have this sword manual? If you do, I'll practice this instead of the horse lance in the future. Qing Chumo said with a hopeful face, drooling. Dugu Xian stood up and cupped his fists solemnly. Xiao Xian, this Dugu 9 swords is very similar to our Dugu family's solitary wind swordsmanship. If you have this sword manual, our Dugu family is willing to pay any price to exchange it. Please help us. Seeing Dugu Xian's solemn face, Dugu Feiying also stood up and cupped his fists. Xiao Xian, please. Li Zixuan hurriedly waved his hand and said, Xian, Feiying, sit down first. Sit down, sit down. But, sit down first. Otherwise, I won't say anything. All right. After they all sat down, Li Zixuan said, I've only heard about this Dugu 9 swords from my master. I don't have the sword manual, but I can roughly remember the essentials of each move. I'll tell you in detail when I have time in the future. When he heard Li Zixuan say that he did not have the sword manual, Dugu Xian was initially disappointed. But when he heard the last sentence, he was instantly excited. He quickly said, Okay. Chapter 552. Hey, didn't you say that we're not going home until we're drunk? Why are we talking about swordsmanship now? Come. Let's drink. The dishes are going to get cold soon. The 9 swords beyond the swords was an idea that Li Zixuan came up with on the spot. Li Zixuan had no idea if he could come up with a complete set of 9 swords beyond the swords based on the description in Old Man Jin's novel. However, with his current understanding of martial arts, he had the ability to give it a try. However, it was obviously not a good time to give it a try. Hence, he stood up and called out to them. Haha. Yes. Let's drink. Let's get Xiao Xian drunk today. Xian, Feiying, you two don't know this, but on his wedding day, he asked me, Bao Lin, Huayu, and Huiran to drink for him while he sneaked off to the bridal chamber with the bride. Don't you think this kid is unkind? That time, I was so drunk that I slept for 2 days and 2 nights. Qing Chumo raised his glass and began to expose Li Zixuan's ugly side to the Dugu brothers. Dugu Feiying rubbed his chin and said hesitantly, That's indeed unkind. Haha. I knew it. We're all reasonable people. Feiying, let's take turns getting him drunk today, and let him have a taste of his own medicine. Qing Chumo laughed excitedly as if he had met a soulmate. Dugu Feiying turned his gaze to Dugu Xian. Dugu Xian frowned and said, Chou Nyo, marriage is something that happens only a few times in a person's life. Xiao Xian must have placed too much importance on it, that's why he asked the few of you to drink for him. I don't think it's too much to ask for a little understanding. Not too much to ask? Qing Chumo almost vomited blood when he heard this. He had never imagined that Dugu Xian, who had always been cold and indifferent, would say such shameless words that went against his conscience. What the F asterisk asterisk K was going to happen? What the F asterisk CK? Xian, how did you become such a person? Didn't little Xian just agree to give you the sword manual? You're going against your conscience because of this? F asterisk CK. I, old Ching, have misjudged you. Ching Chumo glared and said with grief and indignation. Ha ha. Li Zishuan could not help but laugh. Chonyo, isn't it easy for you to get me drunk? I'll give you a chance today. But there's no point in fighting like this. How about we play a game? The loser will drink. Hee hee. Little Xian, are you talking about rock paper scissors? This is good. I'm the best at this. Let's do this. Yuchi Baolin clapped and cheered. Finger guessing is fine too. I'm definitely better at this than you, little Xian. Ching Chumo echoed. Li Zishuan shook his head and said, not rock paper scissors. Let's play a game that no one has played before. That's only fair. What game? There's a game that I, old Ching, have not heard of before? Ching Chumo said in disbelief. The others also looked at them curiously. Li Zishuan smiled and began to explain. The game I'm talking about is called Every 7 Passes. The rules are simple. The 5 of us will pick one person and say any number. For example, if Chonyo says 8 Baolin, you have to say 9 Xian, you have to say 10, and so on. But there's one thing to take note of. Whenever there's a number that's a multiple of 7 or contains 7, that person can't say it out loud. He has to say pass. Those who don't say pass, or those who hesitate for more than 2 breaths will all fail. The loser will be punished by drinking a glass of wine. Then, we'll start the next round from that person. How about it? This game is quite interesting. Why don't we play it? It was the first time Dugu Feiying had heard of such a novel game. He could not help but be interested. On the other hand, Ching Chumo was smart. He thought about it and shook his head. No, Xiao Xian, you're scamming us again. At the end of the day, this game is still testing one's ability to calculate. In this aspect, if you dare to say that you're second, who would dare to say that they're first? No, I won't do it even if you beat me to death. Who would have thought that this idiot would be enlightened at such a crucial moment? Li Zishuan was amused. Although this game is related to calculating ability, it's also very easy to fail miserably, okay? After all, it also tests one's reaction speed. Besides, this is my first time playing this game. Let's have a fair competition. Chonyo, if you don't dare to play, you can watch from the side. If you want to play, come and play. Let's use this method to get drunk today. Okay. Count me in. Count me in too. I'll join too. The moment Li Zishuan finished speaking, Dugu Feiying, Yuchi Baolin, and Dugu Xian all expressed their willingness to join. Ching Chumo said anxiously, Who said that I don't dare to play? Heh. Who's afraid of who? I'll join too. This idiot rolled up his sleeves and looked like he was about to go all out. He said to Li Zishuan, Let's begin. Li Zishuan smiled. Okay. Then the first round will start with me. 6. Ching Chumo was stunned for a moment before he quickly said, Pass? He was secretly pleased with himself. You want to scam me so soon? No way. After all, this idiot had spent so much time in the mathematics school where experts gathered. He had learned quite a lot. The ones who were at the losing end were probably the 2 brothers, Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying. Yuchi Baolin, 8. Dugu Xian, 9. Dugu Feiying, 10. Li Zishuan, 11. Ching Chumo, 12. Yuchi Baolin, 13. Dugu Xian, 14. No. When it was Dugu Xian's turn, this honest kid's brain had not yet processed the situation and subconsciously blurted out the answer. Ha. Wrong. There's no use regretting it. Drink up. Ching Chumo immediately stood up and shouted. At this moment, he felt that this little game was quite interesting. Dugu Xian knew that he had answered wrongly as soon as he said it. Seeing Ching Chumo's heckling, he did not say anything else and directly raised his head to drink the drunken immortal in one gulp. Then, he shouted, "Continue, I say 20. With the help of the game, their banquet lasted all the way until the sun set in the west. The bustling sounds in their private room could be heard throughout the entire drunken immortal restaurant. As for the final battle, Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying drank the most and had to be carried back. It was very easy for the game to fall into a vicious cycle. Those who drank too much would naturally become more and more muddle-headed towards the end, and the number of times they answered wrong would naturally increase. Li Zishuan did not drink that much. This was his first time playing this game in Tang Dynasty, but he had played it many times in his previous life. Naturally, he would not lose to the natives of Tang Dynasty. Chapter 553. While Li Zishuan was having a drink with his friends at the Drunken Immortal restaurant, a storm was raging outside because of him. Cui Xuanji thought that Li Zishuan was just bragging when he said that he would destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself. Therefore, he arranged for people to spread the news and make everyone think that Li Zishuan was just a braggart. Who would have thought that the corpse of the 7 cultivators of true virtue serpent would be hung in front of the Li residence, proving that Li Zishuan was not just bragging and that he had the strength to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue. But when Cui Xuanji learned that Li Zishuan had destroyed the 7 cultivators of true virtue, the people he sent to spread the news had already spread it out. It was too late to regret? Oh. So that Li Xianan had made a military order in front of His Majesty to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself. He is truly a young hero. Yes. Previously, the imperial court was unable to defeat the 7 cultivators of true virtue. Who would have thought that Li Xianan would have the courage to deal with the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself? He is truly amazing. Heh. It's no wonder that the imperial court's army was unable to defeat him. Look at the size of that serpent. Who can compete with this beast in terms of strength? Moreover, this thing is definitely poisonous. Fortunately, Li Xianan was able to take down the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself. Otherwise, we would have lost a lot of good men like last time. Today, many people in Chang'an City had heard that Li Zishuan had made a military order to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself. But not long after, they heard that Li Zishuan had killed the 7-headed serpent of the 7 cultivators of true virtue on the Snake Spirit Mountain. Therefore, many people came to the Li residence to watch the show. Lord Zhu had personally come out and said something. He said that the people of the 7 cultivators of true virtue had repeatedly tried to harm him and his family, flouting the law of the state. Therefore, His Majesty had sent troops to deal with them. Then the 7 cultivators of true virtue deserved it. I heard that Li Xianan was like a divine soldier descending from the heavens and killing all the people of the 7 cultivators of true virtue by surprise. Did you see the fire in the northeast last night? When this old man woke up last night, I was shocked. I thought some rich family had caught fire. From the looks of it, the fire last night must have come from the 7 cultivators of true virtue. His Lordly is so powerful? One person annihilating an entire sect? How did he do it? Hey, that's what a genius is. In the eyes of these commoners, Li Zishuan was able to wipe out the entire sect single-handedly when not even the imperial court's army could handle the Jianghu sects. Naturally, he was very powerful. Therefore, Li Zishuan became the idol of many people. Of course, he had also become the nightmare of many people. Sect leader, why have you gathered everyone here? Mount Zhongnan, a certain second-rate sect in the pugilistic world. The sect leader was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He looked at the 200 or so disciples in the field and said loudly, Today, this old man will announce a major event that concerns the life and death of our sect. Everyone must listen to me carefully. In the future, if anyone dares to violate this, they will be expelled from the sect. Do you understand? Everyone was shocked. They wanted to ask what kind of matter could concern the life and death of their sect, but when they saw the sect leader's serious and fierce face, they could only reply in unison, "We understand." The sect leader nodded with satisfaction and continued, "In a while, each of you will come and get a portrait. You must remember the person in the portrait. If you meet him in Chang and City in the future, you must remember that you must not provoke this person. Otherwise, you will be expelled from the sect. Do you understand?" At this moment, everyone, from the disciples to the elders, was dumbfounded. Although their sect was only a second-rate sect, there was no one who was worthy of their fear. If they offended someone, they could just go and apologize, and the matter would be over. Was there a need to call everyone together with such great fanfare? Do you all understand? Seeing that no one answered him for a long time, the sect leader angrily repeated himself. Understood. Understood. At this time, everyone finally reacted and agreed. Yes. Good. Come and receive the portrait first and take a good look at it. If you meet the real person in the future, don't recklessly offend him. In a luxurious house in the south of Chang and City. Granduncle, the plan this time has failed. Not only did I fail to ruin Li Zishuan's reputation, but I also made him more popular in the hearts of the people. I deserve to die. In the afternoon, Cui Xuanji first asked the servants who had been sent out to spread the false news to come back. Then he came to the room to report. On the soft couch in the room, a white-haired old man was half-sitting. It was Cui Xuanji's granduncle, Cui Junchuo. Cui Junchuo was Cui Shanfu's uncle and the uncle of the 3 Dugu empresses. However, as early as the Sui dynasty, because of being implicated by the dethroned Crown Prince Yang Yong, Cui Junchuo was removed from his position and exiled. His wife and children's properties were all confiscated, and his daughter was also sent to Yeding. Later, Yang Guang became the emperor, and the daughter of the Cui family was doted on by him. Yang Guang then issued another imperial edict, absolving Cui Junchuo and the others of their crimes, restoring his title of nobility, and also giving him some properties. However, Yang Guang courted disaster and destroyed the Great Sui dynasty in just a few years. Now that the Great Tang dynasty was ruled, Cui Junchuo, the head of the Qinghe Cui family's Zhengzhou branch, was just a decoration of the Li family. Cui Junchuo still had the title of Duke of the East County, but he only received a title without any real power. Even his title was a fake one, and he didn't have any real title. In Chang and City, he was just waiting to die. However, as the head of the Qinghe Cui family's Zhengzhou branch, Cui Junchuo still had a lot of power. Sigh. I've heard about this matter. That Li Zishuan was able to destroy the 7 cultivators of virtue by himself, which was beyond my expectations. I can't blame you for this. You will have a chance to fight in the future. Don't be discouraged. Cui Junchuo sighed and comforted him helplessly. Hearing this, Cui Xuanji breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you, granduncle." However, the process of how Li Zishuan destroyed the 7 cultivators of virtue must be very special. Xuanji, tell your father to investigate this matter. Cui Junchuo ordered with his eyes closed. Yes, granduncle. West City, outside the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Li Zishuan couldn't help but find it funny when he saw the 4 drunken brothers shouting that they wanted to continue playing being sent back to their respective homes. He thought to himself, isn't this just a little game on the drinking table? Wait until there's a werewolf game in the future. Won't this group of people play all day long? Shaking his head, Li Zishuan got on the carriage and went home. Chapter 554. At night. In a mansion on the east side of the East County Duke's mansion. Xuanji. This is how Li Zixuan destroyed the 7 cultivators of true virtue. This kid is ruthless and ruthless. I'm afraid we can't afford to offend him. In the study, Cui Shanfu looked at his son and smiled bitterly. After listening to him, Cui Xuanji couldn't help but be shocked. After a long while, he came back to his senses and said, "Father, how did Li Zixuan fly up to Snake Spirit Mountain? I've never heard of any tool that can fly so high." Cui Shanfu spread out his hands and said, "You're not the only one who hasn't heard of it. I've lived for decades, but I've never heard of such a strange thing. As for what tool that kid used, he was afraid that it would be leaked in the imperial court, so he didn't say it on the spot." This brat is really crafty," Cui Xuanji said regretfully. "That's really a pity. Li Zixuan is a novelty one after another. With his help, the imperial court will only become stronger and stronger, and the status of our aristocratic families will become lower and lower." Cui Shanfu also understood this, but the decline of the aristocratic families had already formed. How could they turn the tide with just their family alone? He sighed and got up. The current emperor is a rare sacred lord, and Li Zixuan can also be regarded as a good minister. What can we do with a good minister and a sacred lord? Let's just wait for the right opportunity. Xuanji, I called you here today to tell you that we shouldn't provoke Li Zixuan in the future. Although he said in the imperial court that there was only one true Qi iron ball, who knows if he was lying or not? If he were to throw out another one, none of our families would be able to take it. Fortunately, you did it secretly this time. Now that Yin Batian and Snake King are dead, he won't be able to trace it back to us. But, Father, Cui Xuanji was unwilling to give up and wanted to say something, but Cui Shanfu didn't give him a chance. He waved his hand and interrupted. "No buts. This matter is over. Xuanji, pack up and prepare to return to Zhengzhou. There's too much right and wrong in Chang'an. Zhengzhou is our route." In the early Tang Dynasty, Zhengzhou was still called Zhengzhou. However, in the Tianbao era, Zhengzhou was renamed Xingyang County. "Dad, I'm not going back." Cui Xuanji, who was used to the prosperity of Chang'an, could not bear to go back. He retorted with a red face. "Bastard! How dare you not listen to your father? You have to go back this time. There was no room for negotiation." Cui Shanfu glared at Cui Xuanji and grunted angrily, and then he flicked his sleeve and left, leaving Cui Xuanji on the spot with an ashen expression. On this day, after Li Zixuan finished his breakfast, he took a horse carriage and went to Cloud Mountain with his guard. The matter on Snake Spirit Mountain had delayed him for a long time. In addition, after returning from Snake Spirit Mountain, he had to deal with Li Er, deal with the courtiers, and help Dugu Xian deduce the 9 strategies beyond the swords. In total, he had not been to the construction site for more than half a month. He didn't know how the construction of the academy was going. Speaking of the 9 strategies beyond the swords, it could be said that he had dug a pit for himself because he had been continuously deducing it at home for 4 or 5 days, but he still hadn't completely deduced it. However, it couldn't be said that it was a complete failure, because he had comprehended something from the deduction these days. The most intuitive manifestation was that his 9 strategies beyond the swords now had a kind of invincible arrogance, and a kind of calmness that could predict the enemy's moves. However, in terms of the 9 strategies beyond the swords, he had only managed to deduce 3 moves: the sword-breaking move, the knife-breaking move, and the spear-breaking move. Moreover, when he connected them together, he felt that something was wrong. After a few more days of deduction, even someone as strong as Li Zixuan couldn't take it anymore. He felt that his head was hurting. Therefore, he decisively decided not to think about it anymore. He attached the 3 sword moves that he had deduced and the information of the 9 strategies beyond the swords that he could recall on a piece of paper and handed it to Dugu Xian for him to slowly think about it. As the saying went, it was better to trick others than to trick oneself. Li Zixuan was very good at this kind of thing. However, this was going to be tough for Dugu Xin because in terms of martial arts realm, he was not as good as Li Zixuan. In terms of spiritual power, he was even weaker. Therefore, he had to use a hammer to deduce the sword moves. Wow! The progress is really fast. When he reached the peak of the Cloud Mountain, Li Zixuan saw that on the originally barren Cloud Mountain, there were actually many half-built red brick houses. Although these houses were only 2 to 3 zhang tall and didn't have a roof, Li Zixuan was still very happy to see them. This mountain was going to be the foundation of his future in Tang Dynasty. What made him even happier was that there were many cement roads on the Cloud Mountain. Walking on them, Li Zixuan couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. It was as if he had returned to the modern era. However, that was destined to be impossible because the air here was so fresh. There wasn't even a trace of industrial dust. How could it be the modern era? Hey. All right, both of you pull with all your might. Not far away, Li Tai, the little fatty, was instructing the commoners to use a hemp rope to pull a basket of red brick. The hemp rope went around a tall frame, and as the 2 commoners slowly pulled, the basket of red bricks also slowly rose. On the ladder next to the wall, there was a craftsman holding a shovel, waiting for the bricks to be transported over. Squeak, squeak. Perhaps it was because there were too many bricks in the basket. The friction between the hemp rope and the support frame made unpleasant squeaking noises. Li Zixuan was originally still wondering where Li Tai, that little fatty, got such an ugly, beggar's version of a crane. At this moment, he suddenly shouted with a face full of shock, "Chinke, get out of the way for me!" Although he was shouting, his feet didn't stop moving. This was because he saw that the hemp rope was already 2/3 broken, and Li Tai was standing right below the bamboo basket. If the bamboo basket fell from such a height, Li Tai's head would definitely be like a watermelon that fell to the ground. By then, the entire Tang Empire would be shaken. Thinking about it, if the great king of Wei died at the construction site of Li Zixuan Academy, not to mention how the courtiers would impeach him, Li Zixuan would probably even have the thought of killing Li Zixuan. Even without considering the feelings of Li Zixuan and the courtiers, Li Zixuan didn't want to see anything happen to Li Tai. This little fatty was a disciple that he valued a lot. "How dare you? Who dares to call themselves my father?" Hearing the roar, Li Tai was enraged. Other than Li Zixuan, there was probably no one in the world who dared to call themselves his father. Crack! At this moment, the hemp rope finally couldn't withstand the weight and completely broke from the middle. With a whoosh, the bamboo basket fell rapidly and went straight for Li Tai's head. Chapter 555. Be careful, Captain. The moment the rope broke, the 2 workers felt their hands loosen and almost fell. When they came back to their senses, they wanted to rush forward to save Li Tai. Gu Xiaomao, the vice-captain of the 8th team of the 1st Regiment, was waiting for Li Tai to succeed in his experiment. However, when he saw this scene, he was scared out of his wits and his legs went soft. Perhaps ordinary people didn't know about Li Tai's identity, but he knew about it. If something happened to Li Tai here today, he would definitely not be able to escape. He might even implicate his family. Thinking of this, Gu Xiaomao's face turned pale. He wanted to save Li Tai, but his legs were so weak that he couldn't move at all. F***ck. Li Tai looked up and was almost scared to death. He subconsciously wanted to run away, but with his body size and his slow reaction, how could he escape before the bamboo basket fell? Seeing that the bamboo basket was getting closer and closer to his head, Li Tai couldn't help but shout in his heart, "This prince is going to die today. Li Zixuan, oh Li Zixuan, this prince is using my life to help you build the academy. When you return, remember to burn something interesting for this king to bring to the underworld." Huff! Bang! Just as Li Tai closed his eyes and cursed in his heart, he suddenly felt a gust of wind beside him. Following that, he heard a dull thud. He couldn't help but wonder, so many bricks hit my head, but it doesn't hurt? It seems like people don't feel pain after death. F***ck. Of course you don't feel any F***king pain, because I caught it for you. Li Zishuan, who was holding the bamboo basket with one hand, scolded in annoyance. He was really angered by this little fatty, which was why he called him daddy twice in a row. Fortunately, there were no outsiders here, or else he would definitely report him. In this situation, if Li Zishuan had come a tenth of a second later, Li Tai's life would have been gone. How could Li Zishuan not be angry? Little Xian, why are you here? Haha. I'm not dead. I'm not dead. Little Xian is awesome. You can even catch such a heavy basket of bricks. Amazing, amazing. Li Tai opened his eyes. When he saw Li Zishuan holding the bamboo basket, he was first shocked, then a burst of joy from surviving a calamity arose spontaneously. He jumped away from the bottom of the bamboo basket with lingering fear and then laughed loudly. Li Zishuan's face couldn't help but twitch. He threw the basket of bricks in his hand to the side and said with a fierce expression, "Brat, if you want to move bricks, then do it properly. Why are you standing under the bamboo basket? If I didn't come over today, who would be able to bear the responsibility if something happened? Do you know how many innocent people will die because of you? Cough, cough." Li Tai's face turned red and said with shame, "I just wanted to observe the operation of the brick-moving machine from this angle and see if there are any improvements to be made. I didn't expect that such a thick rope couldn't even handle a few bricks. I didn't think it through and miscalculated." F***ck. Li Zishuan shook the hand that just caught the basket and couldn't help but interrupt. "You call this a few bricks? Damn it, can't you guys get a bigger bamboo basket? This big basket of bricks is at least 200 pounds. Can't you use a smaller bamboo basket for your experiment?" Li Tai glanced at Li Zishuan's hand and muttered, "How can I do experiments with a smaller bamboo basket? This brick-moving machine is specially made to be lazy." Li Zishuan said angrily, "What did you say? Boss, this is all my fault. I shouldn't have let the captain do this. I should have let everyone carry the bricks properly." Gu Xiaomao finally came back to his senses. He came to Li Zishuan and bowed repeatedly to apologize. Li Tai stared and said, "Gu Xiaomao, I wanted to do this. It's none of your business." "You shut up first." Li Zishuan snorted and then said sternly to Gu Xiaomao, "Gu Xiaomao, you are indeed responsible for this. Even though Qin Ke is doing the same things as you, eating the same food, and sleeping in the same room, you know very well how important the responsibility is to him. I'm not asking you to give him preferential treatment. He will do what he should do himself. But as the vice-captain, you have to pay attention to his safety at all times. Qin Ke was standing under the basket just now. Didn't you think that there would be danger? If something happened to him here today, do you think you'll have a good time?" Gu Xiaomao's face was pale as he replied bitterly, "I won't have a good time. I'm sorry, boss. I didn't think it through and didn't take precautions. It's all my fault. No matter how you punish me, I won't have any complaints." Li Tai couldn't stand it and wanted to speak up for Gu Xiaomao. Li Zishuan glared at him and stared back at him. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said to Gu Xiaomao, "All right, you should reflect on yourself. What happened today can't happen a second time. Otherwise, you won't have a good time and I won't have a good time either. Do you understand?" Gu Xiaomao quickly bowed and said, I understand. Li Zishuan nodded and turned to Li Tai and said fiercely, "Qin Ke, come with me." After saying that, he walked to the house next door. The simple, temporary combat command room had now become a one-story brick house. "Oh." Li Tai shrunk his neck and replied sullenly. Today's Li Zishuan was too fierce. Even he was a little scared. "Say it." What the hell is that brick moving machine? Why do you want to make it? In the room, seeing that Li Tai had followed him in, Li Zixuan asked expressionlessly. Speaking of the brick moving machine, Li Tai immediately became confident. He smiled proudly and said, "Hee. This is my, Li Tai's, exclusive invention. Previously, the craftsman said that if we were to build the academy according to the blueprint, we would have to use the method of filling in the ground. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to continue building the walls. I thought that was too troublesome, so I thought of this idea of sending bricks up from below." Li Zixuan asked sullenly, "Filling in the ground? What's that?" Li Tai heard and immediately said with disdain, "Damn, you don't even know about the method of filling in the ground? I really have to give it to you. What's with the nonsense? I asked you, just answer." Okay. After Li Tai's explanation, Li Zixuan finally understood that the method of filling in the ground was to use soil to bury the bottom part of the building. After the top part was covered, the soil was removed. This was also the method that the ancient people used to build high-rise buildings. After all, in this era there was no lifting equipment. After listening to Li Tai's explanation, Li Zixuan was speechless and said, "So? That's why you made such a lousy toy? You're such a clever little brat." Chapter 556. Little Smarty Boy? Li Tai's face turned green when he heard Li Zixuan calling him that. He shouted, "F***ck, you're the little smarty boy. Also, you can insult me, but you can't insult the brick-moving machine I made. I thought about it for a long time before I came up with it." When Li Zixuan heard this, he was almost amused by this little fatty. He laughed and said, "Insult you? How did I insult you? Also, what kind of brick-moving machine is this? What the hell are you making? Have you considered the stability of the base? Have you ever thought that the friction between the hemp rope and the frame will be too strong? Have you ever thought that if the goods are heavier, the workers won't be able to move them? Have you ever done a stress analysis on the frame?" With Li Zixuan's series of questions, Li Tai couldn't help but be stunned. He muttered, "If the goods are too heavy to move, you can ask more people to do it. But what is friction? What is stability? What is stress analysis? You didn't even do a theoretical analysis, and you want to put it into practice? You can only fail if you put it into practice." Li Tai was unconvinced and said, "This is just an accident. Next time, it will be better than this. Haha. If you don't change your method, you won't be able to do it even if I give you a year." Li Zixuan, who had done countless research projects in school in his previous life, knew that before a new technology was born, there must be careful theoretical analysis. Without a theoretical basis, trying to do it recklessly was tantamount to a blind man trying to figure out an elephant. The efficiency would be greatly reduced. Haha. If you're so capable, come and do it. You've been gone for more than half a month. I thought you would only come back after the academy was built." Li Tai was a little annoyed. He sat on the stool next to him and complained loudly. Speaking of this, Li Zixuan felt that he was in the wrong and didn't want to argue anymore. He touched his nose and said awkwardly, "Ahem. I came back to Chang and to do something. Now that the matter is settled, I will come here more often." Little Fatty curled his lips and said, "I know you're busy. Our great hero single-handedly annihilated an entire clan. How awe-inspiring. TSK. It had been a long time since that incident happened, so Li Tai obviously knew about it. But his tone was a bit. Li Zixuan raised his hand and said angrily, "F***ck. If you have something to say, can't you just talk nicely? Why do you have to be so sarcastic? Are you asking for a beating?" Little Fatty immediately cowered and hurriedly said, "How am I being sarcastic? This prince is praising you. Sigh. Don't hit. At most, I won't tell Imperial Father about you calling yourself lousy in front of me." Li Zixuan was stunned. Then, he sneered, "Heh? Do you dare to say it? Li Tai rolled his eyes. Of course, he didn't dare to say it. If he said it, Li Er and Empress Zhongsun would know that he was almost killed at the construction site today. In that case, he wouldn't be able to come out easily in the future. Go get me a pen and paper. I want charcoal. Xiaoning should have it. Li Zishuan smiled and said suddenly. Ah, what do you want to do? Li Tai didn't react and said in a daze. Li Zishuan said unhappily, What can I do? To give you a lesson. Today, I'll show you what a real brick moving machine is. When Li Tai heard that, he wasn't displeased by Li Zishuan's impatient tone at all. Instead, he was overjoyed and said, Ha ha, good good good. I'll go get you a pen and paper. Although he felt that he wasn't much worse than Li Zishuan before he built the brick-moving machine, he realized the gap between them after he almost lost his life. When he heard that Li Zishuan wanted to help improve the brick-moving machine, he was happy. Lord Zhu, let me do such a small thing. Brother Chicken, who came with Li Zishuan today, came over and cupped his fist. He muttered in his heart, Only my Lord Zhu would dare to ask the Emperor's favorite prince to help get a pen and paper. Before Li Zishuan could say anything, Li Tai patted Brother Chicken's arm and said, I'll go get it. You stay here. After saying that, he went out. Brother Chicken stood there, stunned and speechless. Li Zishuan laughed and said, When a student helps a teacher get a pen and paper, even the ministers in the imperial court won't say anything. Feiji, you're overthinking it. Pang Feiji said, You're right, Lord Zhu. Master. Master. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, followed by Iron Egg's shout. Come in. Li Zishuan hurriedly said. Master, how do you have time to come over? As soon as he said that, Iron Egg walked in with Lan. Iron Egg was the first to greet them with a smile. Lan hadn't seen Li Zishuan for a long time. She hugged Li Zishuan's arm and giggled. Brother, brother, you're finally here. Lan missed you so much. Li Zishuan waved at Iron Egg, indicating that he didn't need to be so polite. Then, he rubbed Lan-er's braids and smiled dotingly. Ha ha. Little girl, you know how to lie too? If you miss me, why don't you go home? You must be playing wild here and can't bear to go home? He hadn't returned to Cloud Mountain for more than half a month, but Lan-er hadn't returned home for more than half a month either. He had been staying at Han Tianhu's house these days, sleeping in Han Yushi's room in the past. During this period, Madame Li felt worried and came to visit a few times. However, when she left, Lan-er couldn't bear to leave no matter what, so Madame Li didn't force her. It was said that this girl had now dominated the Han and Mei villages and had become the king of the children here. Usually, she would follow Iron Egg to Cloud Mountain to watch the fun and see strange things, or she would instruct her friends to dig for bird eggs, or she would become a teacher and teach others how to read and write. She was really carefree. Hee hee. No way. Lan-er is busy. Brother, are you thirsty? I'll get you some water. The little girl shook Li Zishuan's arm embarrassedly and said sweetly. Li Zishuan laughed and joked, Ha ha. How can I trouble my family's missy? Brother isn't thirsty. Lan-er, go play by yourself. Lan wrinkled her nose and said unhappily, Humph. Stinky brother, you still treat Lan-er as a child. I'm not leaving today. I'm going to follow you. Little Xian. I brought a pen and paper. Iron Egg, you're here too. Just as Li Zishuan was having a headache over Lan-er, Li Tai finally came back with a pen and paper. When he saw Iron Egg in the house, he greeted him a little unnaturally. Iron Egg nodded and said, Yes, by the way, Chinke, yesterday I heard that you were going to test the brick-moving machine you recently invented. How was it? Li Tai. Chapter 557. Hee. Iron Egg, do you still need to ask? Look at Brother Green Sparrow's expression. He must have failed. I told you that without my brother's help, he wouldn't have succeeded. Lan Er pointed at Li Tai and giggled. Don't expose someone's shortcomings. Lan Er's words could be said to be ruthless, directly stabbing into Li Tai's heart. The little fatty's face darkened, and he almost vomited a mouthful of blood. Li Zishuan was afraid that he would be too embarrassed, so he said to Lan Er, all right. Lan Er, go and have fun. I'll come and find you when I'm done. After that, he took the pen and paper from Li Tai's hands and walked to the desk at the side and sat down. Lan Er saw this and understood that Li Zishuan was going to be busy with business, and it was all business that she was not interested in. Hence, she replied with an "oh" and went out. Li Tai heaved a sigh of relief and came over to ask curiously, Xiao Xian, what kind of brick moving machine are you going to design? Can it compare to mine? Li Zishuan's charcoal pencil paused and he sneered, ha. You still have the nerve to compare your broken toy with mine? You can just watch from the side. After that, he was too lazy to talk nonsense and began to concentrate on drawing. Speaking of the crane, it was necessary to talk about the pulley block on the crane. Other than the hydraulic transmission mechanism, the most important part of the crane was the pulley block. The fixed pulley block was a fixed fulcrum and prevented the rope from being messed up. The moving pulley block was mainly used to save effort. As long as the design of the pulley block was reasonable, it was not unusual for a person to pull up a 500 kilograms heavy object. Let's make a simple crane first. Li Zishuan instantly had an idea. The crane's base, connecting rod, pulley block, lifting mechanism, and luffing mechanism all appeared in his mind. These components, under Li Zishuan's pen, quickly formed a beggar's crane with wheels. There was no other way. Although Li Zishuan could draw a 3D model of the modern large-scale cranes, almost all of them were hydraulic cranes. Even if he could draw one, it could not be done with the industrial level of this era. Hence, after thinking about it, he could only make a human-powered crane with pulley blocks as the core. You're done. Li Tai saw that Li Zishuan had stopped and could not help but ask. Li Zishuan nodded and said, yes. Li Tai furrowed his brows and picked up the drawing. After looking at it for a long time, a trace of surprise appeared on his face. He praised, this little wheel's design is good. With this thing, the hemp rope will suffer much less wear and tear in the future. I don't have to worry about the rope breaking anymore. Li Zishuan said with a faint smile, oh, not bad. Qingke, it's not easy for you to see this. But you only know one part of it and not the other. Iron Egg, come and take a look. What's the use of the wheel on the side of the connecting rod? Yes, master. Iron Egg walked over and began to look at the drawing seriously. After a while, he hesitated and said, Master, in addition to the wheel at the top of the connecting rod, there's probably something else that's connected to the bottom. Li Zishuan looked at Iron Egg with appreciation and said with a smile, not bad. Iron Egg, you're very accurate. Do you know what's the mystery of this wheel? Iron Egg said embarrassedly, sorry, master, I can't see it. Li Tai muttered, it's just a broken wheel. What mystery can there be? Li Zishuan was too lazy to bicker with little fatty. He pointed to the drawing and explained to them, Iron Egg, Qingke, I call this small wheel a pulley. The top is called fixed pulley. You can all guess its function. It's used to fix the fulcrum, prevent the rope from messing up, and reduce the wear and tear of the rope. The bottom pulley is called moving pulley. It's very useful. It can save half of the strength. Iron Egg and Li Tai were shocked and said in disbelief, save half of the strength? How is that possible? Li Zishuan smiled indifferently and said, how is it not possible? When using moving pulley, the hook weight is suspended by 2 pieces of rope. Each piece of rope only bears half of the weight of the hook weight. This way, the person pulling the rope only needs half of the strength to pull it. In the future, when you learn another course, physics, you will know a theorem that the power multiplied by the moving arm is equal to the resistance multiplied by the moving arm. The moving pulley's moving arm is twice as long as the moving arm, so the power is half of the resistance. At that time, you can use this theorem to analyze and you will find that the moving pulley is indeed labor-saving in principle. Although Li Zixuan's words contained many technical terms that Li Tai had never heard of before, little Fatty still felt that Li Zixuan's words were very reasonable. He pinched his chin and fell into deep thought. Iron Egg nodded confusedly and asked doubtfully, "Master, if it's really like what you said, then if we use more moving pulleys, won't we be able to lift thousands of pounds of heavy objects with very little strength?" Li Zixuan nodded approvingly and said with a smile, "Iron Egg, your question is very good. That's right. In theory, it is indeed like this. Do you remember what I told you before? When engineering is developed to the extreme, ordinary people can lift thousands of pounds of boulders. Master didn't lie to you." Li Tai's eyes widened and he was shocked speechless. What Li Zixuan said was tantamount to a fantasy to him. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the means of immortals. Iron Egg nodded excitedly and said, "Yes, yes. Master, I remember. I didn't expect to see such a wonderful scene so soon." Li Zixuan smiled and shook his head. But although in theory, the more moving pulleys, the more labor-saving it involves the question of whether it is worth it. "What's not worth it?" Iron Egg asked in puzzlement. Li Zixuan said with a smile, "Although using a moving pulley saves energy, the distance it moves is twice as far as the distance it moves the hook. That is, it consumes a lot of distance, and that brings up the issue of efficiency. For example, using a wooden stick to pry open an ant and using a wooden stick to pry open an elephant. Do you think the wooden stick is labor-saving or labor-intensive? It's the same with pulleys. If you use pulleys that can lift thousands of pounds of boulders to lift a basket of bricks, the pulleys will probably be heavier than the bricks. It's definitely not worth it. So when deciding the number of pulleys, you must consider the actual situation. The size of the horse should match the size of the saddle. Don't do more useless work." There were not many technical terms in these words, so it was not difficult to understand. Iron Egg and Li Tai both seemed to understand something after listening and fell into deep thought. Iron Egg understands. Thank you for your teachings. After a long time, Iron Egg came back to his senses and solemnly clasped his hands. Li Tai also came back to his senses. He said seriously, "After listening to Master's words, Tai has also benefited a lot. Thank you very much." At this time, he realized that Li Zixuan was right. The brick moving machine he made was indeed a piece of junk. Chapter 558. Hee. Alright. It's good that you guys understand. Feiji, get someone to send the blueprint to the workshop now. The structure of this thing is simple, so it shouldn't be too difficult to make. Get Faubert to arrange for someone to make one today to try it out. Li Zixuan put away the blueprint on the table, handed it to Pang Feiji, and instructed him. When he was explaining the principles of the pulley block to Iron Egg and Li Tai, he didn't deliberately ask Pang Feiji to avoid it. Therefore, Pang Feiji was very clear about the importance of this blueprint. He took the blueprint with both hands and said solemnly, "Lord Ju, this thing is so important that I have to make a trip personally. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, I'll really die 1,000 times." Li Zixuan smiled and didn't refuse. Brother Chicken took the blueprint and went out. "Chinke, Iron Egg, let's go. Follow me for a walk." Li Zixuan watched Pang Feiji leave, and then said to the two people in the room, "Okay. Master. Master, look at these tall buildings. It hasn't even been a month since the start of construction, and so many have already been built. Iron Egg has never heard of this speed before." Iron Egg said emotionally as he walked on the cement road at the top of the mountain and looked at the rows of half-finished buildings beside him. Li Tai heard him and said with a smile, "What's so strange about this? Iron Egg, why don't you see how many craftsmen and commoners we've hired here? There's strength in numbers, so naturally, we can't use common sense to measure this. Just the cost of wages and food on this construction site every day isn't something that ordinary people can afford. Li Zishuan nodded and said, "There's strength in numbers." Hee, that's right. However, after the crane is made, the construction speed will definitely be faster. Crane? What's a crane? Li Tai was puzzled. Li Zishuan patted his head. He just remembered that he was just explaining the principles of the pulley block to them and forgot to tell them that thing was a crane, so he said, "The crane is the improved version of the brick moving machine that I just designed. I feel that it's definitely not just for moving bricks, so I called it a crane." Iron Egg said excitedly, "Crane? That's a good name." In fact, he previously felt that the name of Li Tai's brick moving machine was too old-fashioned, but he didn't say it out of consideration. Boss Meng, bring 2 men with you to move these bricks up. There's not enough over there." I'm going." At this moment, Li Zishuan suddenly heard an incomparably familiar voice. He looked towards the source of the voice and saw a person he would never have thought of. It was the little idiot Sun Zifen. He pointed at the little idiot in astonishment and asked, "Why is this kid here?" Seeing Li Zishuan's astonished look, Li Tai said proudly, "Hee. If this king can be here, why can't Sun Zifen be here?" Li Zishuan was stunned for a moment before he reacted and asked, "This kid was brought here by you, Qingke?" Li Tai nodded and smiled, "Of course. Not only him, Wang Meng, Lu Yen, Huiran, Huayu, Yu Dongkai, Kushirqing, Xing Ziren, and the rest are all here. This king can't be sunbathing alone in the wilderness while they enjoy life at home, right? It's just that Choak said that he could only come tomorrow. That's a bit of a scam. However, more than half of the people from the school were called by me. How about it? I'm awesome, right?" After Li Tai said that, he put on an expression of wanting to be praised and quietly waited for Li Zishuan to praise him. Li Zishuan was stunned when he heard that. He thought for a moment and suddenly asked in disbelief, "Kushirqing? Xing Ziren? Lu Yen? The 3 of them are here too?" If he remembered correctly, when he decided to build his own college and leave the Imperial College, although half of the students from the school were willing to follow him to Yanwang College, Kushirqing, Xing Ziren, and Lu Yen, who were top-notch students but were not from official families, did not say that they wanted to come to Yanwang College on the spot. Now, they were urged to come by Li Tai. It was a bit unbelievable. Li Tai understood what Li Zishuan was thinking and replied with a smile, "Xiao Xian, are you trying to say that they didn't agree to come to Yanwang College?" Haha. Maybe at that time, they were hesitant to come to Yanwang College and lose their future, but how many idiots are there in our school? Xiao Xian, you've made so much news recently. Even idiots know that only by coming to Yanwang College can they learn real knowledge. Also, I have to admit that you're quite charming. As far as I know, many students in the school have fallen out with their families in order to study under you." Li Zishuan was silent for a while. To be honest, when he left the Imperial College, he was sad to see those students wavering, but he definitely did not blame them. After all, this so-called Yanwang College was just a mediocre private school in his previous life. It was unrealistic to ask people to give up Tsinghua or Peking University to go to a small school like yours. He just felt a sense of loss that the talents he had painstakingly nurtured were taken advantage of by others. He did not have any resentment, but he did not expect those students to put in so much effort during this period. After a while, Li Zishuan turned his head and asked, "But most of them are spoiled since they were young. What can they do to help if they come here?" Li Tai heard him and said angrily, "F***ck, what are you talking about? They're spoiled since they were young? Aren't I the same? Why can't they do the things that I can do?" Li Zishuan's face was full of black lines. He had almost forgotten about this. Qingke is right. Xiao Xian, not only can your students help, but they've also helped a lot. At this time, Yan Xiaoning appeared out of nowhere and walked to Li Zixuan's side and interrupted. Xiaoning? It's really been a long time. Haha. When Li Zixuan saw him, he gave him a brotherly bear hug without hesitation. Hey! Let go, let go! Yan Xiaoning was not used to such an intimate way of greeting. He quickly pushed Li Zixuan away and said angrily, F***ck, you still have the cheek to say that. When you left the last time, you said that you would be back in a few days. In the end? This time, you left for more than half a month. I'm so F***king pissed. Cough cough. Li Zixuan coughed awkwardly and said shamelessly, Didn't I already compensate you just now? Speaking of which, not many people in the Tang Dynasty can enjoy my hug. Get lost. Yan Xiaoning roared angrily. Ugh. So disgusting. Li Tai covered his mouth, indicating that he could not stand this gay scene. Li Zixuan waved his hand nonchalantly and said, This is romance between men. What do you know? Oh right, Xiaoning. You said that these students have helped a lot? What do you mean? Chapter 559. Yan Xiaoning didn't know what romance was between men, but he knew that Li Zixuan was just joking. Now that they were talking about serious matters, he became serious and said, Although these students from the Institute of Mathematics can't be compared to those commoners in terms of physique, they are all very smart. Basically, each of them can lead a team of dozens of people. They are very good at the allocation of various tasks and the budget of materials and supplies. Although these 10,000 people could work in an orderly manner in the past, with the addition of these students, I can clearly feel that the entire construction corps' work efficiency has increased by a lot. Moreover, Shaoxian, the academy that you want to build has many buildings that have never appeared in my Tang Empire before. During the actual construction, there will always be various kinds of problems. A while ago, it really gave me a headache. Fortunately, Qingke called in these students from the Institute of Mathematics. You don't say. These students of yours are very different from those bookworms that only know how to read the 4 books and 5 classics. They can really apply what they have learned. Many of them may not be familiar with the work here when they first came, but after a few days, they can manage the people under them in an orderly manner. They can also give some very innovative and practical suggestions. They are really helpful to us. When Li Zixuan heard this, his mood immediately became happy. In the past, he didn't understand how teachers felt when they saw their students become successful. Now, he completely understood. That kind of happiness was not the same kind of happiness as earning $1 million. It was a kind of comfort that came from the inside out. At this time, Yan Xiaoning said again, Shaoxian, my dad said that he wants to pick a few of your students and put them in the Ministry of Works. What do you think? Li Zixuan immediately glared and said, Not good. How much have they learned? What can they do in the Ministry of Works? Serve tea and water to those in charge? Definitely not. Besides, working in the Ministry of Works is tiring and the salary is low. Is this work for humans? The last sentence was a bit too much. Yan Xiaoning said exasperatedly, How can you say that? To think that my father and second uncle even came here to help a few times. You are a classic example of an ingrate. I'll tell my father when I get back. Li Zixuan knew something was wrong and quickly said, Hey. Xiaoning, don't. I'm praising the Ministry of Works for being noble and virtuous ministers of the country. Humph. Who are you kidding? Yan Xiaoning snorted in disbelief. The two of them laughed and joked for a while before a craftsman came over and called Yan Xiaoning away. Li Zixuan then brought Iron Egg and Li Tai to Sun Zifan. At this time, the sun was about to rise to the top of their heads. It was very obvious that Sun Zifan's face was covered in sweat. However, this guy seemed to be used to it. He didn't care about it and continued to direct people to work. He had the posture of a leader. Zifan. Li Zixuan walked behind Sun Zifan and called out softly. Sun Zifen paused, turned around and said in surprise, "Hey, mister, you're here." After saying that, this little joker put down his work and ran over. It looked like he wanted to give Li Zixuan a hug. Li Zixuan didn't want to hug this sweaty little fatty. Yes, this joker was a little chubby, but definitely not as chubby as Li Tai. When the two of them stood together, one was big and the other was small. They were quite compatible. "Stop, stop, stop, stop. What are you so excited about?" Sun Zifen said matter-of-factly. "I haven't seen Mister for so long, of course I'm excited. I've been here for 7 or 8 days, but I've never seen Mister's shadow. I thought you went missing." Li Zixuan originally wanted to ask this joker if he was used to living here, but now it seemed that there was no need to ask. A happy person could find happiness anywhere. He waved his hand and said, "I went back to Chang and to deal with some things, so I didn't come over. You've all worked hard. Okay, Zifen, go do your own things. I'll go check on the other students. This afternoon, I'll treat you all to lunch. At the Han village, at the foot of the mountain." After saying that, he prepared to leave. Sun Zifen said anxiously, "Hey, mister, wait. Wait. I have something to tell you." Li Zixuan stamped his feet and said, "What?" Sun Zifen scratched his head awkwardly and said hesitantly, "I heard that Mister has made a flying tool. When I go back to Chang and someday, can Mister let me try it?" Li Tai finally remembered this and shouted, "Yes, yes, yes, yes! It's that fairy lamp. Xiaoxian, you have to let me sit on it. I've never flown before." Iron Egg also looked eager to give it a try, but he didn't say anything. Because he was Li Zixuan's disciple and brother-in-law, he didn't have to worry about not being able to sit on the fairy lamp. Li Zixuan couldn't help but look at the two little fatties in front of him, and then said with a half-smile, "Zifen, Qingke, with your size, aren't you afraid that you'll crush the fairy lamp and fall from the sky?" The two of them suddenly felt like they were hit by 10,000 points of critical hit. Sun Zifen said, "Hurt, mister, aren't you making your students too disappointed?" Li Tai wasn't so easily fooled. He thought about it and said angrily, "F***CK. Xiaoxian, don't scare us. Your fairy lamp can definitely withstand Zifen and me. Others don't know, but I know that the 7-headed giant snake in your house was brought back by you using the fairy lamp." Sun Zifen's eyes lit up when he heard that, and he looked at Li Zixuan eagerly. Li Zixuan was helpless and could only say with a headache, "Well, the fairy lamp currently has a design flaw. After ascending to the sky, you can't control the direction, and once you go up, it's hard to come back down. Are you too sure you want to give it a try?" The two of them were immediately confused. Li Tai wondered, "Then how did you control the direction last time?" Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Qingke, don't compare yourself to me. I know martial arts, and I won't be troubled by this. Okay. I'm not going to talk nonsense with you guys. I'm going to see Serene and Kushirqing." After that, he ignored the two little fatties who were flustered in the wind and left with Iron Egg. "Hey, this fairy lamp is used to bring girls. How can it be used to carry little fatties? A while ago, I was too busy and didn't have time to bring girls. Now that I have time, maybe I can consider it," Li Zixuan thought to himself as he walked. In fact, the main reason was that the fairy lamp was unstable now. If it was used to carry people, and he wasn't there to look after them, it would be easy for something to happen. However, he wasn't particularly willing to bring two big guys to see the scenery in the sky, so he could only let them suffer for now. Chapter 560. Noon. Han Family Village, Han Tianhu's house. Li Zixuan, Yan Xiaoning, Li Tai, Iron Egg, Loner, Sun Zifen, Wang Meng, Kushirqing, and the other students from the School of Mathematics were all gathered in the main hall. The scene was very lively. There were close to 30 people, so one table was definitely not enough. There were 3 tables in total. The Han family's front hall, which was not very spacious to begin with, suddenly became very crowded. Since they were outside, they couldn't possibly treat their students to a meal in the cafeteria of Yunshan, right? At first, Li Zixuan planned to freeload at his father-in-law's house for lunch. Later, after seeing Sun Zifan, he thought about it. One person freeloading was freeloading, and more than 20 people freeloading was also freeloading, so he simply brought them all over. However, this made things difficult for Han Lijing. After Iron Egg knew about Li Zixuan's plan, he came back 2 hours earlier to help Han Lijing prepare the meal. Now that the living standards of the entire Han family village had improved, Han Lijing's family had a special relationship with the Li Zixuan. Naturally, they would not be short on ingredient. They had chicken, duck, and fish, but they lacked a chef. Han Lijing didn't want to neglect the students that Li Zixuan brought over, so he specially invited Hu Hanyun's wife to cook. Lu Yue went home after she finished cooking. Then, there were 3 sumptuous tables full of food and wine. Lord Taishan, come and take a seat. It's been hard on you today, Li Zixuan said apologetically. Actually, what he was thinking was to ask Han Yushi's opinion on whether he should find a second wife for Han Tianhu. It would be best if he could buy a few more maids and servants. Otherwise, it would be too hard for Han Tianhu to manage this huge house by himself. Heh. What's so hard about this? Xiao Xian, as long as you guys are happy eating. Han Tianhu wiped his sweat and said nonchalantly. He was really happy that Li Zixuan was able to bring his students over as guests. Now that Li Zixuan was his son-in-law, he was a junior. Seeing that his junior had made a name for himself and was loved by his students, he only felt gratified. Come, let's eat together. Yeah. Uncle Han, come and eat together. Li Zixuan and Yan shouting quickly invited him. Han Tianhu nodded and sat beside Li Zixuan. Then, he raised his cup and said to Yan, Li Tai, and the others, "This poor village can't be compared to the big restaurants in Chang'an City, so please don't despise this simple meal. Since all of you are little Xian's friends and students, as an elder, let me toast to all of you." Yan shouting quickly said, "Uncle Han, what are you saying? The dishes on this table are comparable to those of the restaurants in Chang'an. We should be the ones toasting you, Uncle Han." Yes. To Uncle Han. However, this Han family village isn't a poor village. It's much richer than many other villages. Uncle Han, you've managed it well. Sun Zifan was someone who knew how to talk to people and ghosts. At this moment, he could be serious in front of his elders. He raised his cup and laughed. Immediately, a bunch of voices of agreement rang out from behind. Yes. Today's dishes are very sumptuous. Thank you for your hospitality, Uncle Han. Here's to Uncle Han. That's right. Otherwise, we would have to eat together on Yunshan Mountain. Haha. Han Lijing's face was flushed with excitement when he heard these words. He finished the wine in his cup and smiled. Great. Then, you guys eat and drink well. Li Zixuan took over the conversation with a smile and looked at the crowd. He looked at the crowd and said, "More than half of the people from our school of mathematics are here today, right? After more than a month, we're gathered together again. Kushirqing, Xingziren, Lu Yan, and the rest of you didn't plan to go to Yanwang College with me. However, since you're sitting here now, it proves that you're willing to continue learning with me and that you're optimistic about the future of Yanwang College. I won't say thank you to you for this. I'll only congratulate you. I congratulate you for making the best choice in your life. In a month, Yanwang College will be officially established. At that time, you'll see an unprecedented college. At that time, Yanwang College won't be a place where others can enter just because they want to. Come. To all of you. Everyone, let's have a toast." Okay. Well said, sir. Although the college hasn't been built yet, I, Sun Zifan, have already fallen in love with Yunshan. To Sir. Li Tai and Sun Zifan cheered loudly. However, Kushirqing, Xingziren, Lu Yen, and the others' eyes were slightly red. They saluted Li Zishuan from afar. It could be seen that they didn't have a good month. Li Zishuan put down his wine glass and laughed. Haha. Good. Stop saluting each other. Let's eat. I know you didn't eat well on Yunshan. Let's have a good lunch. Of course, your efforts won't be in vain. In the future, the thousands of Yanhuang College students will remember your contributions to Yanhuang College. Kushirqing solemnly cupped his hands and said, Due to some reasons, I didn't immediately express my willingness to join Yanhuang College. I'm very ashamed. Please don't blame me. Xingziren, Lu Yen, and the others also hurriedly cupped their hands and apologized. Li Zishuan smiled and waved his hand. Haha. Don't blame me, don't blame me. Sun Zifan, however, said mischievously, Just because you don't blame me doesn't mean we don't blame you. Kushirqing, you should punish yourselves by drinking 3 glasses. Kushirqing gritted his teeth and said, All right, 3 glasses it is. After saying that, he was about to pour himself a glass of wine. Li Tai hurriedly shouted, Hey, wait! If you're all drunk, who's going to help you in the afternoon? Don't drink so much. Li Zishuan couldn't help but burst out laughing. This little fatty had become the supervisor of the construction site. Xingziren's face was full of black lines. He hesitated for a moment and said, I'll choose to get drunk. Ha ha. Shirqing, Ziren, Lu Yen, have you all thought about it? Do you want to come to Yanhuang College? After lunch, Li Zishuan took a rest under the big tree in the Han residence's courtyard for a while and led the group of students on the road to Yunshan. Kushirqing nodded firmly and said, Sir, we've all thought about it. In fact, none of the 44 students in our school doesn't want to continue learning from you. When you left the Imperial College, the reason why so many people didn't express their opinions on the spot was mainly because they were concerned about the opinions of their family members. As far as I know, many of our classmates have been thinking of ways to persuade their families in the past month. I believe that when the college starts next month, the 44 students in our school will definitely gather together again. Li Zishuan was silent. He put his hands behind his back and sighed deeply. I hope so. I can't bear to part with all of you. Chapter 561. In the afternoon, after returning to Cloud Mountain, the group of people returned to their respective posts and busied themselves with their own task. Li Zishuan did not stay idle either. With his hands clasped behind his back, he strode forward and began patrolling around his territory. He was not patrolling to see if anyone was slacking off. The reward and punishment system that he had set in the beginning had stimulated everyone's enthusiasm to work. Now, no one in the entire construction site would slack off. No one would complain that they had too much work to do. On the contrary, they were afraid that their team would not be assigned any work. This was because not only would the food be worse, but the bonus at the end of the month would also be reduced. This guy was completely full and had nothing to do, so he wandered around aimlessly. Haha! This entire mountain will belong to me, Li Zishuan, in the future. And there's a super big school on top of it, TSK. How comfortable! In his previous life, Li Zishuan was just a poor student. Even if he joined the workforce, his monthly salary would not be able to buy a 1-square-meter house in Beijing. But now, he owned an entire school near Chang'an, a modern school that he wholly invested in. How could he not be satisfied? Oh, the student bathhouse has already been built? All around him were half-built houses. Only the larger building next to the student dormitory had been completed. Li Zishuan thought for a while and recognized that it was the student bathhouse. He sighed and walked in. Cement walls, cement floor, and empty space. This should be used to store wardrobes in the future. Inside there were small cubicles. In the future, when water pipes and sprinklers were installed, it would be a student bathhouse that all modern schools had. These things would not be considered rare in modern times. But to the ancient people, those students would probably not be used to it when they first came in to take a bath. Right, water. What should he do with the water on Yunshan? He could not expect people to carry water down the mountain every day, right? How troublesome would that be? Thinking of this, Li Zishuan could not help but frown deeply. The monthly water consumption of a school was terrifying. No one knew this better than him. The water problem of Yanhuang College had to be solved as soon as possible. Lord Zhu. Lord Zhu. So you're here. I've finally found you. At this moment, Pang Feiji suddenly ran in from outside and said while panting. Li Zishuan collected his thoughts and asked, Feiji, you're back? Is that thing already done by the workshop? The beggar's version of the crane he designed was not complicated. It only had a base, supporting rods, pulley blocks, and some structures to adjust the angle and direction. It was not difficult to make. Pang Feiji said excitedly, Yes, Lord Zhu. I've already brought it here on an ox cart. It's right in front of Guanghua Building now. Li Zishuan nodded and said, Okay, let's go and have a look. Guanghua Building was the main teaching building of Yanhuang College. When it was designed, it was arranged to be at the front of all the buildings in the college. In Li Zishuan's opinion, this building would be the face of Yanhuang College in the future. Of course, it had to be seen by everyone. When they passed by Yanhuang College's future library, the red building, Li Zishuan looked at the prototype of the classical building. Suddenly, he said to Pang Feiji, Feiji, you have to remember this building well. It has another name, it's called the Airplane Building. In Feng Yu's previous life, the red building looked like a huge airplane when viewed from above. Therefore, some people called it the Airplane Building. When Pang Feiji heard this, he suspected that he had heard wrongly. He dug his ears and said in disbelief, Lord Zhu, are you using this building to commemorate me, old Pang? Lord Zhu's kindness, old Pang, As he spoke, he choked up. In his opinion, he was just a rough person. Yanhuang College was destined to be a holy land for scholars. Li Zishuan was willing to use his name to name a building in the college. To him, it was such an honor. How could he not be excited? Cough, cough. Li Zishuan saw that this guy was forcing himself to be dramatic. He couldn't help but cough and said, That's not it. The reason why I called it the Airplane Building was because it looked like an airplane. After that, he ran away as if there was oil on the soles of his feet. Brother Chicken, on the other hand, was stunned on the spot. He looked at the unfinished red house and muttered, Like me? How does this building look like me? Hey, sir, you're finally here. As soon as Li Zishuan arrived in front of Guanghua Building, he saw a group of people surrounding a tall frame with 4 wheels. They were basically the students of the School of Mathematics. When Sun Zifan saw Li Zishuan, he came over to greet him. Li Zishuan didn't ask how these students knew about it. He walked to the side of the crane and looked at it. Then, he smiled at Li Tai and said, Qinke, it's rare for you to have the opportunity to be a strongman. Do you want to try this crane yourself? Although Li Tai was not happy with the first half of the sentence, he still rubbed his hands excitedly and nodded. Okay. After that, he ordered the people to hang a big basket of bricks on the hooks below the pulley block. He then began to turn the wheel and tried to pull the basket up. Damn! It's actually so easy? Li Tai originally used all of his strength and prepared to use all of his strength to turn the spinning wheel. In the end, because he used too much strength, he almost tripped and fell. And the bamboo basket filled with bricks, without any accident, rose up. Wow. Qinke, when did you become so strong? Yeah. This basket of stones is about 200 pounds? Tisk tsk. Not only is Qinke meaty, but she's also very strong. With such a sarcastic tone, he must be Sun Zifan, young hero's son. The surrounding students couldn't help but widen their eyes and gasp in amazement. If they hadn't seen the people put the bricks in the basket one by one with their own eyes, they would have suspected that Li Tai was cheating. Just like that, in a short while, the big basket of bricks was lifted up about 3 feet. The people waiting on top of the basket suppressed their surprise and carefully unloaded the bricks from the basket. Li Tai touched his nose and was speechless. He felt that the brick-moving machine he made earlier was really weak. Li Zishuan nodded with satisfaction and smiled at the student. Did you all see that? This is the power of engineering. It can make a powerless person full of strength. It can let you understand the world you're in now. Of course, it can also change the world. The knowledge that Yanhuang College will impart to you in the future will definitely be the most powerful knowledge in the world. Good. Sir, you're amazing. We want to learn the most powerful knowledge. Sir, you're mighty. Who hasn't been young and frivolous? When the students heard this, they were all elated and excited, except for Li Tai. He was very dissatisfied with Li Zishuan's words. It can make a powerless person full of strength. He felt that Li Zishuan was talking about him, so he moved to Li Zishuan's side and whispered, "Xiao Xian, I don't think your crane is good?" "What's not good?" Li Zishuan asked subconsciously. Li Tai replied, "It's too troublesome. You single-handedly lifted up such a big basket of bricks in the morning. I think you're better than a crane. Why don't you use Qigong to help us move the bricks in the future?" Get lost. Li Zishuan was stunned and almost slapped his size 40 shoe on this little fatty's size 38 face as he shouted angrily. Chapter 562. Shouting, "I'll leave this crane to you. With this thing, I believe the construction of the academy will be much faster. Please be sure to finish building the bishop, the canteen, and the dormitory within a month." It was the first time they saw such a novel thing, so naturally, the students of the school couldn't help but try it themselves. After an hour, their enthusiasm faded, and they returned to their post. Then, Li Zishuan found Yan Xiaoning and said with a smile. Yan Xiaoning had also tried the crane himself. He nodded and said, "Yes, that's right. This crane is really helpful to us. And no, Xiaoxian, are you going back to slack off again?" Li Zishuan couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Why is this guy so sensitive now? He hurriedly said, "No, I'll come here often when I'm free. You have to take care of the things here. If you have any problems, you can send someone to find me directly." Yan Xiaoning had an, as expected, expression and said gloomily, "I knew you were going to slack off. You're not even as good as your students." Li Zishuan shook his head and said, "You can't say that. I'm not going home to slack off. You guys are responsible for the construction of the academy. I still have a lot of things to deal with. For example, the water supply of the academy, the hiring of teachers, the recruitment of students, the writing of teaching materials, and so on. I need to deal with all these as soon as possible. Compared to those students, I'm the one who's really working hard, okay?" Hearing this, Yan Xiaoning stopped complaining. He thought for a while and said, "Well, you're right. Go do your own things then. I'll take care of things here." Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Okay. Then I'll leave it to you." After that, he was ready to go home. What he said just now wasn't a perfunctory or an excuse. He was really short on time. He should have started doing these things a long time ago, but he was delayed by the matter of the 7 cultivators of virtue for a long time, so he really didn't have much time left. Yan Xiaoning suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, "By the way, Xiaoxian, there's one more thing I need to tell you." "What's the matter?" "Recently, the autumn harvest is approaching. Many people want to ask for leave to go back to help with the harvest. However, the construction period here is getting more and more urgent. Moreover, if we recruit new people, the new people will definitely not be as skilled as them. Therefore, I did not allow them to go home for the time being. But this is definitely not a long-term solution. Do you have any good ideas?" Li Zishuan frowned slightly. He had neglected this point. In ancient times, the spring planting and autumn harvest were important matters for the common people. Basically, the whole family counted on the grain in the fields to survive the year. He absolutely could not delay the autumn harvest of more than 10,000 families because of his own selfish interests. He pondered for a moment and said, "Let's go. More money. All the workers and craftsmen who are willing to stay will have their wages doubled this month. They can use this money to hire people to help with the autumn harvest. Besides, each of their families should have half-grown children, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Of course, if they don't want to stay, we won't force them. We'll allow them to take leave and go home after handing over their work. However, they won't get the double pay. We'll let them decide for themselves." Yan Xiaoning raised his eyebrows and exclaimed, "Double pay? Xiao Xian, are you crazy? Putting aside the sumptuous meals, the wages that we, Yunshan, offer are already considered the most generous. Yet, you want to double the wages? Do you know that just based on this, you'll have to spend an extra 30,000 to 40,000 strings of cash this month?" Li Zishuan shook his head and said, "Xiaoning, you can't calculate it like this. Yunshan is a special case. Although the meals and wages are very good, don't you see that these people are also working very hard? Yanwang College is such a big project. Which construction team can complete it in 2 months? They can. Their efforts are completely worthy of this treatment. As for the double pay, isn't there no other way? No matter what, I can't affect the student's start of school because of the construction progress of the college. This is the most important. In this era, the student's field break was usually in the middle of September. Counting the days, it was only a little more than a month from now. Li Zishuan's anxiousness made sense. Of course, he also had the capital to say this. Strange Interest Pavilion and Drunken Immortal House were now a group of hens that could lay golden eggs. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were raking in gold every day. Moreover, Tang Daily had long been on the right track and was no longer making a loss. Now, just the income from advertising alone was already very considerable. Yan Xiaoning said helplessly, "All right, it's your money anyway. The rich ones are the masters. You can do whatever you want." After coming down from Yunshan, Li Zishuan didn't go straight home. Instead, he went to the workshop. Yanwang College's enrollment promotion needed the power of Tang Daily. At this time, he couldn't help but feel lucky that he started Tang Daily first. With this tool of public opinion, it would be much more convenient for him to do other things. "Brother Ma, for the next few issues of Tang Daily, help me write a few promotional drafts for Yanwang College. I will personally write the first draft. Arrange for people to study it seriously and let them understand my engineering skills. You guys will write the drafts for the next few issues. I want to recruit students." In the editorial department, Li Zishuan found Ma Zhou and began to instruct him. Strictly speaking, Ma Zhou wasn't a pure Confucian disciple. He studied the art of governance and had a good understanding of the knowledge that was useful for governing a country. His character was flexible and flexible. Therefore, Li Zishuan felt assured to hand over such an important department like Tang Daily to Ma Zhou. Ma Zhou understood what Li Zishuan meant when he heard this. He nodded and said, "Lord Zhu, don't worry. We will do our best to cooperate." After experiencing so many things with Li Zishuan, Ma Zhou had a very deep understanding of engineering. He didn't have any bad feelings towards engineering because the current success of Tang Daily couldn't be separated from Li Zishuan's support of engineering. Moreover, he felt that engineering could make the people of Tang better. It could also make more people able to afford to study. The prosperity of the people's education could be brought about by engineering. Therefore, Ma Zhou still hoped that Li Zishuan's engineering could be carried forward. "Okay, I will ask someone to send the draft up later. You have to save a good position for me in tomorrow's newspaper." Li Zishuan nodded and said his goodbyes before leaving. His time was really tight right now. Chapter 563. The next morning, it was cloudy and breezy. A few pairs of young scholars walked on the streets of Chang, and city in groups of 2s and 3s. They looked like they were about to leave the city for sightseeing. It didn't mean that they were definitely students of the Imperial College. There were many other official schools in Chang and city other than the Imperial College, such as Chongwen Hall, Hongwen Hall, Directorate of Astronomy for Astronomy, Imperial Medical Department for Medicine, Taipu Temple for Veterinary Medicine, and so on. This was the capital of Chang and city. If it were a local place, there would be local official schools as well. For example, each prefecture had its own prefectural school, each county had its own county school, and each county had its own school. The official education system of the Sui and Tang dynasties was very complete. Of course, the ability of the rulers to tolerate culture was also incomparable to that of the Ming and Qing dynasties, especially during the Jingguan period. This was also one of the reasons why Li Zixuan dared to propose engineering studies. Mingda, look. Yanhuang College is recruiting students? Yanhuang College? What kind of college is that? Why haven't I heard of it before? 2 scholars were holding the newspapers they had just bought and were discussing as they walked. Mingda, have you not left Chang and city recently? There has been such a big commotion on Yunshan Mountain in the eastern suburbs recently, and you don't know about it? The tall scholar asked doubtfully. The shorter scholar said awkwardly, The weather has been too hot recently, and I haven't gone out. Brother Jing, tell me about the commotion on Yunshan Mountain? What does this have to do with Yanhuang College? You haven't heard of Yanhuang College, but you must have heard of Li Xiannan from Yongla Lane? This Yanhuang College is run by him, and the college is located in Yunshan Mountain. In the past month, hundreds of skilled craftsmen and tens of thousands of workers have gathered in Yunshan Mountain to build Yanhuang College. I heard that Li Xiannan spent 200,000 to 300,000 strings of cash on the college alone. The tall scholar was obviously an insider, and he was also a chatterbox. Once he started explaining, he went on endlessly. Of course I've heard of Li Xiannan, but what future can he have in this college? Will anyone be willing to go? Mingda, what you said is wrong. Yanhuang College is not an ordinary college. The dean of this college is the current emperor. Li Xiannan used to be a minister of the Imperial College. He is very likely to become the chancellor of the Imperial College. His knowledge and ability are beyond words. You don't know how many scholars in the world want to be his disciple. The slightly shorter scholar was obviously taken aback. He said in disbelief, What? His Majesty is the dean of Yanhuang College. How is that possible? The tall scholar sneered and said, Why is it impossible? Many people already knew about this, and it wasn't a secret. But putting all these aside, Li Xiannan's so-called engineering is quite desirable. Brother Jing, could it be that you also want to go to Yanhuang College? Let's not talk about this for now. Let's hurry to the city gate. Otherwise, Brother Shangguan and the others will be waiting anxiously. After the tall scholar finished speaking, he waved his folding fan and took the lead to walk forward. The slightly shorter scholar frowned and then said to the boy next to him, Go and buy me a newspaper, then follow me. Yes, young master. Brother Hua. Good news. South of Chang and City, Jin Yu Academy. Chen Tianhua ran in excitedly with a paper bag of meat buns in one hand and a newspaper in the other. For government-run schools like the Directorate of Imperial College and the Hongwen School, the students had 2 months of field leave. However, these small academies did not exist. This was because these places were mainly places for like-minded people to discuss the Tao. Hua Hongyi, who was sitting in the courtyard reading, looked at Chen Tianhua's excited expression and couldn't help but wonder, Tianhua, what news made you so excited? Did someone give you a tip again? Liao Feichen laughed and said, "Ha ha. In that case, Tianhua, you have to treat me again?" Ever since Chen Tianhua's novel was serialized in Tang Daily, although the results were far from A Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality, he would always receive tips from some rich people every now and then. In addition to the fixed monthly royalties from the editorial department of Tang Daily, Chen Tianhua had gradually moved from the low-income class to the middle-income class. As for Liao Feichen, the results of his novel were slightly worse, but the monthly income was enough for his family's expenses. In this regard, Hua Hongyi was only sincerely happy for his good friend, and did not have any feelings of jealousy. He did not seem to be in a hurry and continued to think of a novel that completely belonged to him. Chen Tianhua walked quickly to Hua Hongyi and placed the meat buns on the stone table. Then, he opened the newspaper and pointed to a short paragraph in the middle and said, No, it's more exciting news than tips. Hongyi Feichen, come and see. Yanwang College is going to recruit students from all over the Tang Empire. Hua Hongyi heard this and immediately jumped up and leaned over and shouted, Where? Let me see. Liao Feichen also leaned over and looked anxious. Chen Tianhua pointed and said, Here. Aren't you going to eat breakfast first? Hua Hongyi and Liao Feichen both waved their hands and began to read seriously. At the end of June in the first year of Xinguan, Yanwang College was approved by His Majesty to cultivate a group of talented, thoughtful, and creative young people for the Tang Empire. His Majesty is the honorary president of Yanwang College, and Crown Prince Li Zishuan is the Yamacho of Yanwang College. After a month of construction by tens of thousands of craftsmen, Yanwang College has begun to take shape and will be completed next month. Now, it is openly recruiting students from all over the Tang Empire. All students from Tang Empire above the age of 8 and below the age of 25, regardless of whether they are rich or poor, who are interested in joining Yanwang College, can register for free at the local Tang Daily branch. All students who have registered will take the preliminary examination on September 18th at Yanwang College in the eastern suburbs of Chang'an. Those who pass the preliminary examination will become a student of Yanwang College and will receive a minimum of 3 to 6 years of education. During this period, all tuition fees will be waived. The contents of the preliminary examination include: It's true. Yanwang College is really starting to recruit students. That's great. Ha ha. Hua Hongyi couldn't help but laugh at this point. Liao Feichen also said excitedly, That's right. With His Majesty as the president of Yanwang College, its status is not inferior to that of the Imperial College. I didn't expect that poor children like us would have the opportunity to enter such an institution. Chen Tianhua smiled and said, You too should finish reading. The contents of the entrance examination are explained at the end. Hua Hongyi and Liao Feichen lowered their heads and continued to read seriously. Chapter 564. Yanwang College's entrance exam consists of the 5 classics, 30%, mathematics, 50%, and morality, 20%. The mathematics exam consists of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and geometry. Most of the content is related to the new mathematics of the Imperial College. Students are recommended to buy the latest textbooks from the Imperial College and study them carefully. The exam difficulty is below average. Students are encouraged to prepare for the exam. In Jinyu Academy, Hua Hongyi and Liao Feichen read the news carefully. Liao Feichen suddenly looked up and muttered, Textbooks? Where are the new mathematics textbooks? We have to hurry and buy them. Chen Tianhua slapped his head and said, That's right. Why didn't I think of that earlier? We should have bought the textbooks while we were at it. There must be a lot of people buying them now. Where can we buy them? The three of them looked at each other and reacted almost at the same time. They said in unison, "Interesting pavilion." Hua Hongyi slammed the newspaper on the stone table and shouted, "Hurry and buy the textbooks." Then he ran out. Liao Feichen reacted and quickly followed him. Hey, hey, hey! Aren't you guys going to eat the buns? In fact, there was more than one article about Yanhuang College in the newspaper today. There were a total of 3 articles, but these people were focused on the enrollment and ignored the other 2. What is engineering? Hee, this old man wants to see how you are going to brag. Wei Mansion. Wei Jing had his breakfast and habitually asked the servants to buy him a Tang daily. Then he sat under the old tree in the courtyard and began to read it. Today was the official's day off, so there was no need to attend morning court. Wei Jing rarely had a day of leisure. He couldn't help but mutter to himself when he saw a piece of news in the newspaper. Engineering is the study of engineering. Its main purpose is to serve the needs of the people and improve their lives. Its ultimate goal is to achieve prosperity for all. The houses of the common people, the pavilions of the palace, the riverbanks, the water conservancy, the city walls, the imperial mausoleum, and the agricultural production could all be supported by the school. Engineering can allow people to realize what kind of world we are in now. Engineering can allow people to make more advanced farming tools, allowing our Tang Empire to have more farmland and not have to worry about food. Engineering can allow people to make faster and steadier vehicles. One day we will be able to travel between Chang'an and Luoyang in a day, and we won't need to travel back and forth for several months. Engineering can allow people to create more powerful weapons, allowing our Tang Empire to stand at the top of the world, allowing the barbarians to submit to us and congratulate us. Engineering can even create flying tools, allowing mortals to soar above the 9 heavens and overlook the magnificent mountains and rivers of our Tang Empire. There is no high or low in learning. Engineering is only for the benefit of the people of the world. Students of engineering can also have a bright future. If you don't have great ambitions, you can use engineering to become an accountant in a shop, or take part in the mathematics examination. You can become a deputy county magistrate or manager of the Ministry of Civil Affairs or Ministry of Work. You can feed and clothe your entire family. If you have great ambitions and are willing to devote yourself to the study of engineering, you can become a master of the generation. You can do things that others don't dare to do. You can create divine weapons that others can't create. You can enjoy great wealth, be worshipped by thousands, and leave your name in history for all eternity. Engineering, as a new study, is actually not new. It combines the academic essence of the pre-Qin dynasty with the purpose of benefiting the people and the world. Young students who want to learn engineering, please immediately register for the entrance examination of Yanhuang College. Gentlemen, on the 18th of September, we will meet at Yanhuang College. Be there or be square. After reading this news, the joking expression on Wei Zheng's face had long disappeared. He stared at the newspaper in a daze and muttered to himself, "Engineering is only for the benefit of the people of the world." Previously, that kid from the Li family said that Confucianism cultivates the mind, while engineering benefits the world. So that's it. But if that's the case, won't the sky of my Tang dynasty be pierced by this kid? Benefits the world, benefits the world. Back then, the school of Mo was righteous. Mencius said that it was for the benefit of the world. How similar is it to Li Zishuan's engineering? I'm afraid that many people will take this opportunity to make a big fuss. This kid is still too inexperienced. Wei Zheng had long passed the hot-blooded age where he would roll up his sleeves and do things on impulse. He wasn't bewitched by Li Zishuan's rather provocative words. Instead, he found a trace of worry in them. However, the reason why he had hidden worry was that he was slightly biased towards Li Zishuan. Otherwise, what was there to be worried about? Wasn't the reason why he had stubbornly opposed Li Er his whole life? Wasn't it to let the people of the world have enough to eat and wear? Although the methods were different, Li Zixuan's and his ultimate goal was the same. That was enough. Let's look at this news. Wei Jing sighed for a while and then looked at another piece of news. It read, Yanhuang College Employment Announcement. As the first engineering school in the Tang Dynasty, Yanhuang College needs to spread the most advanced engineering knowledge. They are specially hiring teachers from the 358 provinces and 1,500 counties of the Tang Dynasty. Among them, there are 10 teachers in the field of classics. They must be familiar with classics and history, have a good teaching style, and have a good reputation locally. There are 28 teachers in the field of engineering who are proficient in any of the following skills. They are eligible to apply, such as engineering, construction, mechanism, machinery, mathematics, astronomy, surveying, smelting, manufacturing, and so on. Yanhuang College's teachers can be divided into 4 ranks: assistant, lecturer, associate professor, and professor. Every year, all teachers will be tested on their teaching ability, and they will be promoted according to their ability. Assistant teachers will be paid 10 strings of coins per month, lecturer 20 strings of coins per month, associate professor 50 strings of coins per month, and professor 100 strings of coins per month. They will also be gifted a new mansion in Yanhuang College. We welcome all virtuous people from all over the Tang Dynasty to apply for this position. Those who are interested, please come to Yanhuang College before the 15th of September for an interview. I, Li Zixuan, will be waiting for you. Why don't you come to Yanhuang College to teach a few students and watch them maneuver unhindered and leave a legacy for generations? After reading it, Wei Jing couldn't help but widen his eyes and exclaim, 100 strings of coins? Crazy! Did this kid lose his mind? Even a doctor in the top imperial college of the Great Tang would only earn less than 20 strings of coins a month. Li Zixuan's salary of 100 strings of coins a month and a luxurious mansion. How could these civil servants of the Great Tang live? To be honest, even Wei Jing was a little tempted. However, after thinking about it, he shook his head. Although Yanhuang College's salary was good, it wasn't his cup of tea. To put it bluntly, other than criticizing people, what else could he do? He didn't know anything about engineering, but he knew about classics. However, he couldn't give up his best skill, criticizing people, to teach classics, right? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.